Chapter 2540. Break. Qin Jian clenched his teeth. A mysterious wave emitted from his body. Qin Jian's straight body began to twist. As it twisted, the wave became more and more intense. The 7 flying swords of the 7-star sword formation were already flickering with Qin Jian's sword light. Under this wave, they began to wail and shake violently. Not good. How could Xiaohua not know that Qin Jian was using a secret technique? He hastily formed a sword sign, and was about to activate the sword pouch to retrieve the 7 flying swords. However, it was fine if Xiaohua didn't form a sword sign. When the sword sign hit the sword pouch also violently shook. There was a strong repulsive force from the sword pouch, resisting Xiaohua's activation. Damn it! Xiaohua was furious. The dream executioner flashed again and charged at Qin Jian. What shocked Xiaohua even more was that Qin Jian seemed to be invisible. The dream executioner charged past Qin Jian's distorted image without stopping at all. It flashed past. Attack. Xiaohua no longer hesitated. At the same time that he recalled the dream executioner, he used his 2 hands to summon lightning. Ka-cha-cha. In the night sky, dozens of thick lightning bolts suddenly appeared and struck at Qin Jian. The huge lightning bolts struck Qin Jian's image dozens of times. However, as the lightning bolts lingered, the image quickly recovered. In fact, Qin Jian's image became even more ethereal. Ha! Qin Jian's wild laughter sounded from the image. A huge sword shape appeared from the image. This sword shape actually carried lightning. Woo! That sword light seemed to be slow but was actually fast. In an instant it was in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua had never seen such a fast flying sword. He was scared out of his wits. He hurriedly formed a hand sign. It was the heaven and earth sleeve technique. However, when this technique was formed, it was as if it hit the void. That flying sword was not afraid of this restrictive force at all. It pierced through Xiaohua's hand. This flying sword is not real. Xiaohua suddenly realized. The wishful staff in his hand hurriedly flashed in front of him, wanting to block this flying sword. However, he was still a bit too slow. He only managed to sweep the tail of the flying sword. That intangible flying sword could not be stopped from rushing into Xiaohua's forehead. The golden light on Xiaohua's forehead flickered, and the golden light protecting his body merely flickered. He didn't even try to resist. An incomparable palpitation spread from the bottom of Xiaohua's heart. It was as if he was facing a great crisis, a crisis that Xiaohua was unable to resist. Just as Xiaohua was about to win, he suddenly appeared. Boom. There was a loud explosion in Xiaohua's mind as the invisible flying sword pierced straight into his mind, and into a mysterious part of his soul. The boom came from the soul armament protecting Xiaohua's dark clouds. It had blocked the flying sword, but the web of soul armament was reduced to nothing under the attack of the flying sword. Oh no! Xiaohua was shocked. He never thought that Qin Jian would have such a soul sword technique that could directly kill a cultivator's soul. If it weren't for the soul armament he'd accidentally obtained outside of his soul, wouldn't he have already perished from that attack? You have a soul armament too? Qin Jian's voice sounded surprised. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Xiaohua didn't dare to be careless. Countless soul strands extended out from the dark clouds and swept towards the flying sword like thousands of tentacles. The moment the intangible soul sword was entangled by the soul strands, it immediately let out a sharp cry. The resplendent sword light illuminated the entire dark clouds. Woo! The flying sword stirred up a gust of wind as it tried its best to pierce through the dark clouds. Xiaohua's soul strands flickered as he tried his best to block the flying sword. However, his soul power was simply too weak. It was only able to block for a moment before the flying sword pierced through the dark clouds. A never-before-experienced fear emerged from the bottom of Xiaohua's heart. As long as the flying sword pierced through the dark clouds, his soul would be destroyed by Qin Jian. Even if he didn't die, would the Xiaohua who lost his soul still be Xiaohua? Just as Xiaohua was facing an unprecedented crisis, Qin Jian, who was in his sword form, was also in a bad situation. A soul sword wasn't something an ordinary swordsman could use. Even Qin Jian, a third-grade illusory swordsman, couldn't use it. The soul sword used the soul energy of the body. It was something Xiaohua couldn't achieve even after many years of soul cultivation. Qin Jian had a few secret techniques and tricks, but when he used them, it didn't just cost his soul, but his body as well. Even an expert as strong as Qin Jian couldn't withstand the backlash of his soul power when he used his soul sword. Only when he was in his sword form did Qin Jian dare to try it. And even when he was in his sword form, Qin Jian had to pay a heavy price to use a soul sword. It could even be said that he and Xiaohua would perish together. This was something the calculative Qin Jian wasn't willing to do. He would only do it as a last resort. Just now, when Xiaohua attracted the heavenly lightning, he just happened to have a thunder cry sword. This sword was his secret weapon. He didn't reveal it because he wanted to attack Xiaohua while he was attracting the heavenly lightning. However, when the heavenly lightning struck the thunder cry sword, the enormous power of the heavenly lightning stimulated the power of his soul, and this soul sword was displayed beyond his imagination. But much to Qin Jian's surprise, Xiaohua had a soul armament and even soul force. Though the soul force he had was weak, Qin Jian waited for Xiaohua's soul to dissipate. He was already thinking of a way to make up for the losses he had suffered in this battle. It seems, this old man was careless, but I can't remember where I was careless. Qin Jian, who already had victory in his grasp, suddenly felt that there was a flaw somewhere. It seemed that he had overlooked something when he was fighting against Xiaohua. But just as Xiaohua was about to lose all hope and Qin Jian was about to gloat over his victory, a dragon's roar echoed in Xiaohua's mind and shook Qin Jian's soul. Just as the soul sword pierced through the mysterious dark clouds, a ferocious-looking dragon head emerged. Although the dragon head's eyes were closed and it looked much fainter than the soul sword, it was still a dragon's head. A majestic aura emanated from the dragon's head. The dragon's head opened its mouth and an unparalleled force enveloped the soul sword. The soul sword was swallowed by the dragon's head without being able to put up any resistance. Then, the dragon head retreated back into the dark clouds. Everything outside of the clouds returned to silence as if the dragon head had never appeared. Xiaobai. Xiaohua was caught off guard by the appearance of the little white dragon's soul. It was only when the little white dragon retreated back into the clouds that Xiaohua realized what had happened. The little white dragon had saved Xiaohua's life today, but it could also be said that the little white dragon had saved its own life. Qin Jian couldn't help but scream. The soul sword being swallowed was the pain of his soul being torn apart. It was far more painful than any physical pain. This old man will fight it out with you. After losing his soul sword, Qin Jian's soul was no longer whole. His consciousness was a little blurry. He couldn't react to the sudden appearance of the dragon head in Xiaohua's soul. He didn't know how to think about such an unbelievable thing. In fact, it was extremely difficult for Qin Jian to get out of the sword form again. But after hearing Qin Jian scream, the sword form suddenly solidified. A huge flying sword let out a loud sword cry. This cry reverberated through the 9 heavens, and a pressure comparable to that of a nascent soul cultivator was emitted from the huge sword. Xiaohua had lost his phoenix celestial body. How could he resist this pressure? Xiaohua hurriedly used his concealment technique to resist the pressure. However, he was too close to Qin Jian. The pressure was pressing down on him. Xiaohua didn't have much true yuan in his meridians to begin with. The true yuan in his meridians was almost stagnant. Xiaohua couldn't even lift a finger. This old man is stupid. Qin Jian's consciousness was already blurred. But when he saw this scene, he immediately knew where his mistake was. He had schemed against Xiaohua for a long time, but he still missed the most basic of pressure. He didn't expect that Xiaohua, who killed several illusory swords, was only at the foundation establishment late stage. It's not too late now. Qin Jian's heart was filled with regret, but there was still hope for survival. The entire flying sword slashed down. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth within a few hundred feet was absorbed by the flying sword. A huge force comparable to that of a nascent soul cultivator held Xiaohua tightly. Pooh! Xiaohua opened his mouth and the last bit of spiritual fire he could summon flew out. The moment the spiritual fire appeared in the air, Xiaohua's fire control art spread out like a net and flew toward the giant sword. However, wherever the spiritual fire net passed, there was not a single ripple. It did not disturb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth at all. However, The restrictive power of the giant sword was swept away by the spiritual fire net. Fight! Xiaohua now had no spiritual energy in his body. He could only use the wind escape technique to raise his staff and fly behind the net of spiritual fire, smashing towards the huge sword. Rumble! The huge roar shook the surroundings again. Sure enough, Xiaohua's expectation was true. Although the net of spiritual fire was powerful, it caught the huge sword and even began to burn it, but the falling momentum of the huge sword did not change. Xiaohua swung his staff just in time. The huge sword was actually blocked by Xiaohua, but Xiaohua was even worse. His body fell straight into the air like a meteorite. Roar! The spiritual fire ignited the huge sword, almost burning into Qin Jian's soul. His primordial spirit gradually fused with the sword spirit was awakened. While feeling the pain, Qin Jian also realized the danger. Run! This was the first time Qin Jian made such a decision since the Battle of Swords. Buzz! The huge sword light shone brightly and moved like a stream of light, flying towards the north. But just as the huge sword was flying, a cold voice came. "Old man, are you leaving? This young master will send you on your way." As the voice spoke, a pool of clear water fell from the sky, blocking the front of the flying sword. Innate primordial water? Qin Jian's primordial spirit was burned by the spiritual fire, and he could not help but scream in pain. Where do you have any spiritual energy left? Do you need spiritual energy to drive the innate primordial water? Xiaohua flew crookedly in the air, looking extremely weak. He could only use the flying technique. But even so, the water curtain of innate primordial water changed with Xiaohua's spell, and quickly closed up, sealing the huge sword in a space. Buzz! The huge sword cried and crashed into the water curtain. Unfortunately, not only was Qin Jian an arrow at the end of its flight, but the water curtain was so tough that it not only corroded the huge sword, but also confused the part of Qin Jian's primordial spirit that crashed into the water curtain. But the strange thing was that the spiritual fire in the innate primordial water was still not extinguished, and it even showed signs of flourishing. Ha! Qin Jian, obediently turn into a sword. This way, you can still accompany Ling Yunwu and the others. Xiaohua's wild laughter came from the water curtain. He was really happy. The quality of this flying sword was definitely better than Ling Yunwu and the others. Qin Jian's primordial spirit was already weak and lost. He had already fused with the sword spirit more than half. When he heard Xiaohua's arrogance, he immediately thought of the 7 flying swords of the 7 stars formation. How could Qin Jian be controlled by Xiaohua after his death? The sword light on the huge sword suddenly retracted, and then expanded again. The huge sword opened up with a boom, and an earth-shattering sound exploded in the innate primordial water. This was the self-destruction of a late golden core stage cultivator. In an instant, the entire water curtain exploded, and the fragments of the huge sword broke through the innate primordial water and flew in all directions. At this time, the sky was already bright, and the sword light reflected the sunlight. It was extremely dazzling and beautiful. No one would have thought that this dazzling scenery was actually the funeral of a sword cultivator. Who? A flying sword fragment brushed past Xiaohua's chin and flew away, scaring Xiaohua. Xiaohua only had time to grab one fragment before the rest of the fragments flew all over the place. There were even a few fragments that fell into the river. Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief, and his figure slowly landed on the foot of a mountain. His whole body was numb. Damn it! I escaped from the tiger's den again. Xiaohua was extremely tired as he thought. At this moment he really wanted to lie down and have a good sleep. The fight just now had really made him extremely tired. However, when the ray of sunlight from the east shone on Xiaohua's body, Xiaohua stretched, clenched his hand, and slowly punched out the Big Dipper magical fist. An extremely strange scene appeared. The faint brilliance of the rising sun fell on the flowing ice valley. The river water was still sparkling, and it hit the mountain peak. Within the sparkling light, large and small flowing ice roared. Following the current, the sound of the waves was ear-splitting. On top of the towering mountain peak, a tall and thin cultivator was calm and composed. Every move was like a virgin, and every move was like a fleeing rabbit. He didn't know how many divine wills swept past him, and how many gazes were looking at him from afar. However, all the gazes flashed by and all the divine wills were gone. No swordsman's divine wills dared to linger in this place for even a moment. Even the divine wills that swept past him were anxious and cautious to the extreme. That's right, the battle between Xiaohua and Qin Jian was so powerful. Qin Jian's cultivation was close to transforming into a sword, and all the swordsmen within a dozen miles could feel his sword intent. That sword intense anger, the sword intense fear, and the sword intense despair, they could all feel it. Especially Xiaohua's lightning-attracting technique, which made their hearts tremble. Terrifying Phoenix. This name was instantly imprinted in their hearts. Chapter 2541. At this moment, the battle had ended. Qin Jian had turned into a sword and self-destructed. Not only was Xiaohua's innate primordial water unable to block it, but all the swordsmen within a dozen miles had sensed his determination to fall into a desperate situation through their flying swords. Qin Jian had died, but what about Xiaohua from the Imperial Thunder Sect? He was actually leisurely practicing his fists at the foot of the mountain. The indifference on Xiaohua's face and his casual fists only let them know that the battle just now was just a small matter. Although he didn't have any power or terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations, which swordsman would dare to take half a step forward? A cool current flowed through his bones, and that comfortable feeling gradually overflowed within Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua closed his eyes comfortably, as if he really liked this tranquil atmosphere. Big brother. An extremely respectful voice sounded. It was Xiao Mao who had flown over. Xiaohua opened his eyes slightly, but did not answer. He saw Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao landing about 10 feet away from him, standing with their hands by their sides. They were waiting quietly. Seeing that Xiaohua was ignoring them, they did not dare to ask. After finishing a set of Big Dipper mystical fists, Xiaohua stopped and smiled. How are your injuries? I took some elixirs, so there shouldn't be any problems. Xiao Mao looked at Li Zongbao, who had a complicated expression, and hurriedly answered. He did not have any obstacles when facing Xiaohua, whose cultivation was extraordinary, but Li Zongbao probably had some ideas. And that's good. Xiaohua sighed and said to Li Zongbao, I'm afraid that we have wasted our trip to the Flowing Ice Valley. I originally wanted to chop off Qin Jian's head, but who would have thought that he would turn into a sword, and this flying sword? I was unable to take it down. Qin Jian self-destructed, so his storage bag and other items are probably gone. We don't have any proof, so how can we claim credit from the conference hall? Hearing Xiaohua call himself a little brother, a trace of warmth flashed through Li Zongbao's eyes. He pointed to the ground and said, Things don't seem as complicated as junior brother Xiao thinks. Oh. Xiaohua looked down and saw a fist-sized piece of flesh. This is Xiaohua was slightly taken aback, but then he laughed loudly. Indeed, this flesh and blood was similar to a fragment of the flying sword that Qin Jian had transformed into when he had self-destructed. Xiaohua casually took it and threw it on the ground. At this moment, that fragment had turned into flesh and blood again. How strange. Xiaohua scratched his head and thought to himself. Since Qin Jian has already turned into a sword, after the explosion, it should be the fragments of the flying sword. Why did it turn into flesh and blood? However, since there was flesh and blood, there should be fragments of Qin Jian's head as well. Now that Xiaohua and the others had the basis to ask for a reward, who would care about why he escaped from the sword transformation? Ha ha ha, the heavens are helping me. Xiaohua laughed loudly. Big brother and senior brotherly, please wait here. I will go and look for them now. Xiao Mao was also overjoyed. Junior brother Xiao, rest here. I will go with Xiao Mao to search for him. Although Li Zongbao's face was indifferent, he was secretly happy. Although he did not personally kill Qin Jian, Xiaohua and Xiao Mao were in the same team as him. This merit belonged to none other than the three of them. Okay, Xiaohua did not decline. Although Qin Jian had self-destructed, his flesh and blood were only scattered within a few li. With the two's divine senses, it would be easy to find him. When the two of them went in different directions, Xiaohua released his divine senses and scanned the area within a few li. All the swordsmen who came into contact with Xiaohua's divine senses were shocked and fled. Damn it, this young master's reputation. is a little troublesome. Xiaohua had a headache. He actually killed Qin Jian in front of so many swordsmen. It was impossible for his reputation not to spread far and wide. Others were afraid that his reputation would not spread far and wide, but Xiaohua was worried. Xiaohua waved the Big Dipper magical fist again. His primordial spirit that had fused with his bones swam within them. After looking at the condition of his bones, Xiaohua was the same as before. He sighed. This bone tempering is really the work of dripping water to penetrate a stone. Without a certain degree of polishing, there will not be any progress at all. This Big Dipper magical fist was the bone tempering technique this young master used when he had a fire attribute physique. Now it is no longer of much use. There are still so many fine orange spots. It seems that the earth crystal Yao milk cannot speed up the progress of the bone tempering technique too much. I wonder when it will reach the limit. Actually, not only was there no improvement in bone honing, there was also not much improvement in the dragon transformation incantation and heavenly infusion technique. However, now that Little White had returned, he could ask Little White about the dragon transformation incantation after she recovered. Xiaohua waved his fists and legs as he thought. It was rare for him to be able to leisurely practice martial arts on the foothills. After 4 hours, Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao flew back. Seeing Xiao Mao's gloomy face, Xiaohua's heart sank. He asked in a low voice, "How is it? Could it be that bastard Qin Jian really split into thousands of blood vessels, and there is no trace of him left?" Hee. Seeing Xiaohua's anxiety, Xiao Mao clapped his hands and laughed. "Big brother, look." As he spoke, he took out a sword token from his storage bag. Xiaohua glanced at it, and did not take it. He shook his head slightly. "Even if it is Qin Jian's token, I am afraid that it is not enough to prove that Qin Jian died in our hands." "What about this?" Although Li Zongbao's face was cold, his eyes flashed with a trace of ecstasy. He reached out his hand and took out half a head from his storage bag. "Oh." Xiaohua's eyebrows relaxed and his eyes lit up. This head was not complete, only half of it. But what was amazing was that this half was half of Qin Jian's face. If it was put together with the sword token, it would definitely prove the identity of this head. "I also found a lot of remains." Xiao Mao laughed. "If we forcefully put them together, we might be able to piece together a complete corpse." Fuck. Xiaohua finally understood why Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao took such a long time to come back. They had searched the surrounding 10 miles, and other than the corpses that had fallen into the river, they couldn't find anything else. Everything else should be here. Xiaohua's eyes lit up and he hurriedly asked, "What about the other things?" "They are all here." Li Zongbao took out a storage bag and handed it to Xiaohua. "Xiao Mao and I knew that junior brother Xiao might be useful, so we came over. But it might not be useful." Hearing Li Zongbao's words, Xiaohua's heart that had just been filled with hope sank again. As expected, when he took the storage bag, there were a lot of things inside. It might be Qin Jian's, or it might not be Qin Jian's, but they were all tattered and not a single one was complete. The sword token and flying sword that Xiaohua wanted was also not there. "Oh, this is in good condition." Xiaohua's divine sense swept over it. It was an extremely simple triangular object that was in tatters. He could not see its origin. Xiaohua took out the triangular object and looked at it for a moment. He could not figure out what it was, but since Qin Jian's self-destruction could not destroy it, it must be extremely hard. "This item. I will take it." Xiaohua looked at Li Zongbao and smiled. "This is all junior brother Zhao's, there is no need to ask me." How could Li Zongbao have any objections? "Thank you, senior brotherly." Xiaohua smiled and kept the storage bag. He looked around and said, "I have troubled senior brotherly about this matter. This Qin Jian was also killed by you, me and Xiao Mao. As for the details, senior brother will make the decision." "And I know this." Li Zongbao looked at Xiao Mao. "We obtained such a great merit out of nowhere, and the rewards are also great. Xiao Mao and I will naturally have to consider carefully." "Good." Xiaohua nodded. He looked into the distance and said, "The sword cultivators are already gathering again. My Dao Sex cultivators are also stopping in the distance. Let's go." "Wait a moment." Li Zongbao bit his lips and said, "I still have to find Marshal Uncle Chu Hui's corpse. It would be even better if I can find Martial Uncle Su Bo's corpse. This Xiaohua frowned slightly. After all, the Flowing Ice Valley's Spirit Stone mine was now filled with sword cultivators. Although the three of them were powerful, it would be dangerous for them to go there now. That day, I went to the country of Shi for Martial Uncle Chu Hui's personal matters. I met junior brother Xiao and Li Zongbao said intermittently. Martial Uncle took good care of me. Even the Taiqing Sect's Feather Immortal Gathering was promoted by Martial Uncle Chu Hui. If I can't find Martial Uncle Chu Hui's corpse, I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Oh, there is such a karma? Xiaohua suddenly realized that the question Li Zongbao had asked about the devil cultivators on the Thousand-Zhang Mountain was actually about Chu Hui. Forget it. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, Senior brother Li, come with me. Since junior brother Li is willing to help because of junior brother Chu Hui, junior brother will definitely do his best. After saying that, Xiaohua flew up and flew towards the place where he saw Qin Jian kill Chu Hui. That place wasn't too far from here, but at this time, there were many swordsmen entrenched there. Seeing Xiaohua, this fiend, actually flying towards them, the crowd of swordsmen couldn't help but be frightened out of their wits. They hastily fled. How could they still dare to stay in place? When Xiaohua landed at the foot of the mountain, he used his divine perception to search carefully. After a long while, Xiao Mao and Li Zongbao flew over. Over there. Xiaohua pointed and said in a low voice. The corpses of the two martial uncles are here. I just don't know if the things inside are intact. Let's go over. Li Zongbao was overjoyed when he heard that. He hurriedly moved and landed at the riverside. Chu Hui and Su Bo's mangled corpses were hanging on the riverside. Their corpses were still intact, and their storage bags were hanging on their waists. Obviously, after Qin Jian killed the two of them, he immediately chased after Xiaohua and the others. He didn't have time to give orders, so the swordsman didn't dare to casually deal with the corpses. Near. There are thousands of corpses. What does senior brother Li think? Xiaohua was a little dispirited and asked in a low voice. Junior brother Xiao is tired. Let me and Xiao Mao clean them up. Li Zongbao's heart was filled with sorrow. However, this sorrow was gradually driven away by the parting love treasure mirror. He only pondered for a moment before replying. Chapter 2542. No need. Xiaohua sighed. Let's do it together. These are the brave warriors of my Dao sect. If I don't collect their corpses, I won't be able to rest easy. With that, Xiaohua flew up and flew in a certain direction. He waved his hands and all the corpses of the Dao sect cultivators fell into his hands. Then he put them into his storage bag. As for the sword cultivator corpses, Xiaohua did not touch them at all. He only collected the storage bag and flying sword. It took them more than an hour to collect the corpses. However, other than the surging river water and the occasional sweep of divine scents, no one came to disturb them. It was quite peaceful. Let's go. After all, Xiaohua was used to collecting corpses. He was the first to fly into the air. After waiting for a while, Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao also flew over. Xiaohua waved his hand and flew to the south. After the three of them flew for a long time, the thousands of swordsmen flew out hesitantly. Some of them cleaned up the battlefield, while some of them flew to other places. They should be notifying the other illusory sword division masters. Xiaohua and the others only flew for an hour. Along the way, they collected many corpses of the cultivators. Then they turned to the west. Li Zongbao originally wanted to point out the direction, but when he saw Xiaohua's confidence, he knew that Xiaohua had found something. Therefore he kept quiet. Sure enough, not long after, Li Zongbao's divine sense also found that there were thousands of cultivators gathered not far away. They seemed to be waiting and planning something. When Li Zongbao and the others flew closer, these cultivators realized that these cultivators were the cultivators that Xiaohua had opened up the underground passage and rescued. When the cultivators saw Li Zongbao and the others return safely, they were all overjoyed. The crowd shouted and stepped forward to greet Li Zongbao and the others. At the same time, they thanked Li Zongbao for saving their lives. At this time, Xiaohua was extremely shy. He quietly hid behind Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao. Although he was smiling, he did not speak. You're welcome, you're welcome. Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao knew Xiaohua's thoughts, so they naturally took half a step forward and returned the greeting. The emotions of the crowd, who had just survived a calamity, were somewhat emotional. Over 1,000 people surrounded the three of them, words of gratitude ceaselessly filling their ears. A long while later, Li Zongbao waved his hand again, indicating for the crowd to quiet down. Then he said, "Today's battle at Ice Flow Valley can be considered as a setback for us. Tens of thousands of disciples were killed or injured. However, I'm afraid even more sword cultivators will perish under the attacks of these disciples. In this way, we'll be able to give an explanation to the discussion hall. Right now, we need to gather the remaining disciples. First, we need to deal with the future attacks of cultivators, and second, we need to see what plans we have for the future." Yes, we understand. Among the 1,000 disciples, there were disciples of the Utopia faction, the Changbai faction, and the Cool Breeze Valley. Those disciples of the Utopia faction were already shouting loudly. They had been driven so far away by the sword cultivators, so they didn't have the time to check on the situation at Ice Flow Valley. At this time they didn't know that Qin Jian had been killed by Xiaohua. Li Zongbao tilted his head slightly and sent a message to Xiaohua. Then he turned back to the dozens of disciples of the Utopia faction and said, "You all go to various places. There are other disciples there. After you find them, wait for us at a place more than 300 miles ahead." Yes, the disciples of the Utopia faction received the order, and flew in groups of 3 to 5 to the places that Li Zongbao had mentioned. The disciples of the other factions flew forward under Li Zongbao's lead. 300 miles away, there was an ice field that was slightly higher than other places. A group of cultivators landed on the ice field. They consumed pills and adjusted their breathing and true core strength. Some cultivators flew out to patrol the area. After half a day, dozens of Utmost Happiness faction disciples returned. Along with them, there were close to 10,000 disciples from the three factions. Half of these disciples had followed Li Zongbao out of the Spirit Stone Mine, while the other half had followed Xie Hui and Su Bo out of the Spirit Stone Mine. Jian Boming, who was close to Li Zongbao, was also killed by the sword cultivators. Greetings, Senior Brother Li and Senior Brother Xiao. Although Yi Bei of the Changbai sect did not have the highest cultivation among the disciples of the Changbai sect, he had helped Li Zongbao in the Karst cave. Now he had gained the support of many disciples of the Changbai sect. Moreover, the disciples of the Changbai sect were protected by the sword origin, and there were more survivors than the Utopia faction and the Cool Breeze Valley. Without Li Zongbao's command, he was the leader of these disciples. However, when he saw Li Zongbao and the other two, he hurried forward to salute them and thank them for saving his life. Li Zongbao hurriedly helped him up and said, "My sex martial uncle Chu Hui, your sex martial uncle Li Feiyu, and Cool Breeze Valley's martial uncle Su Bo have all fallen. When I was collecting martial uncle Chu Hui's corpse, I found martial uncle Li Feiyu's corpse and storage pouch. I will return these items to junior brother Yi." As he spoke, Li Zongbao was about to take out his storage bag. Yi Bei looked sad, but then he waved his hand and said, "Senior brother Li, don't worry. It's not safe to leave Uncle Li's body with me. Why don't you take the bodies of the three uncles Xie Hui and bring them back to the Sky Patrol City?" "Fine." Li Zongbao thought for a while and nodded. Then Li Zongbao asked curiously, "Junior brother Yi, you mean you can't go back to the Sky Patrol City with me?" Yi Bei smiled bitterly and looked at the others. He said, "That's right. We are not like senior brother Li and the two senior brothers Xiao. We were ordered to attack the spiritual stone mine in the flowing ice valley. It would be best if we could conquer it. Even if we couldn't, we had to find out the strength of the swordsman in the flowing ice valley. Then we had to wait for further orders in the flowing ice valley. Just now, when I received your message, I had already sent the disciples of my faction, and the disciples of your faction, and the Cool Breeze Valley according to the previous arrangement. We just need to wait for orders." "Oh, I see." Li Zongbao nodded slightly. He understood that there were further arrangements in the conference hall of the Sky Patrol City. However, he had not heard Chu Hui mention it. Apparently, Chu Hui did not intend to leave Li Zongbao there. After all, Li Zongbao's purpose was to kill Qin Jian. Alas, it was supposed to be a smooth attack. Yi Bei looked at the cultivators who were sitting cross-legged and taking elixirs to adjust their qi circulation. He sighed and said, "But who knew that there would be so many twists and turns? First, we were at a disadvantage. When the three senior brothers turned the tide, we encountered the spirit-binding juice. After the three senior brothers used their divine skills to rescue us from the underground Karst cave, we actually met the fiend Qin Jian. Not to mention the death of the three Gold Core Realm seniors, the three factions lost thousands of disciples. There were more than 30,000 disciples who attacked the flowing ice valley that day. Today, there are only about 10,000 disciples left." Then Yi Bei looked at the distant sky. There were already some dark clouds. He said worriedly, "This place is still close to the flowing ice valley. If Qin Jian chases after us, it will be inappropriate. Let's retreat." According to the plan, there will be disciples from the Sky Patrol City hundreds of miles ahead. Speaking of this, Yi Bei hesitated again. "By the way, if we retreat and attract Qin Jian's attention, it will be inappropriate to lead the swordsman there." "Haha, don't worry," Xiao Mao said with a smile. "I'm afraid that Qin Jian will not be able to catch up with us in this lifetime." Yi Bei was stunned, and then he was overjoyed. He looked at Li Zongbao in disbelief and said hurriedly, "Senior brotherly, what does senior brother Xiao mean?" "That's right. Qin Jian was seriously injured under the fierce attacks of Martial Uncle Chu Hui and Martial Uncle Su Bo. He chased after the three of us, but he fell into my trap. Junior brother Xiao and I joined forces to kill him. This is considered as revenge for the three martial uncles," Li Zongbao said calmly. Li Zongbao's voice wasn't loud, but it was thunderous. Everyone was like Yi Bei, looking at Li Zongbao, Xiao Hua, and Xiao Mao in disbelief. They almost didn't dare to believe their own ears. Li Zongbao looked at the demoralized cultivators. He clapped his hands and took out half of Qin Jian's head. He raised his hands and said, "Look, Qin Jian's dog head is in my hands. My fellow cultivators, the senior brothers and junior brothers who died in the flowing ice valley can rest in peace." Boom. The crowd could not help but murmur. The whole place was in chaos. All the cultivators who were meditating opened their eyes. The demoralized cultivators were suddenly reignited. Senior brother Li's cultivation is really high. He has really made our Utopia faction proud. The disciples of the Utopia faction shouted at the side. The disciples of the Changbai sect and the Cool Breeze Valley also clamored, "Senior brother Xiao Hua, senior brother Xiao Mao's cultivation is really high. I admire you so much." Li Zongbao watched the crowd clamor as all the flattering words flowed past his ears. Moments later, he kept Qin Jian's head into his storage bag and said in a clear voice, "Qin Jian's cultivation is indeed extraordinary and the ambush he set up is also formidable. However, he was still unable to escape from the magical treasures of our Dao sect disciples. We are merely at the advanced foundation establishment stage, and we are able to kill him. There is no need for the Jindan stage elders in the discussion hall to act. What does this mean? The swordsman will lose, and we cultivators will win," the disciples of the Utopia faction shouted. "Exactly." Li Zongbao raised his hand and shouted, "Kill Qin Jian, kill the sword cultivators, kill our way through the sword catacomb, and kill our way into the Hung country. Our Dao sect will win. Kill Qin Jian, our Dao sect will win." Li Zongbao's words were really well received. All the cultivators raised their arms and shouted. The shouts of more than 10,000 cultivators resounded through the heavens and earth. Even though there was no echo in the snowfield, the momentum was really shocking. Damn it. Even though Xiao Hua was a little depressed after the big battle, he was instantly infected by the cheers of the 10,000 cultivators. He was a little excited. The crowd waited for the time it took to eat a meal before Li Zongbao calmed them down. After they calmed down a little, they arranged themselves according to the division of their sects and the arrangement of their teams. They formed a certain formation to rest and adjust their breathing. The other three sects, other than Yi Bei of the Changbai sect, chose another two disciples to be the commanders. Chapter 2543. Qin Jian was killed, and the sword cultivators in the spiritual stone mine in Flowing Ice Valley were also injured. The swordsman won't come after us. Li Zongbao saw that the situation was stable and said, Junior brothers Xiao and I will not stay here any longer. We'll leave the tens of thousands of disciples to you. Junior brothers, please discuss things carefully and don't be impulsive. Yes, we understand. Yibei looked at the two of them and smiled. Senior brother Li, don't worry. Since there are follow-up arrangements in the meeting hall, we won't have to wait here for too long. Besides, senior brother Li and the two senior brothers Xiao have killed Qin Jian. Even if you're not here, the sword cultivators won't dare to attack. That's true. Junior brother Ye's words make sense. Thinking of Xiaohua standing in flowing ice valley, the sword cultivators all retreated. The swordsmen didn't know that the three of them had left, so they wouldn't dare to attack. Li Zongbao nodded and replied, In that case, we'll return to Sky Patrol City. You'd better be careful. Yes, farewell, senior brothers. The three elders in the later stage of Foundation establishment had white hair and beards, but they didn't dare to be negligent in the face of the three people who could kill Qin Jian. They bowed and sent them off. Seeing the three of them fly away, the cultivators' eyes were filled with admiration. At the same time, the sense of security they had just gained faded away. Xiaohua and the other two flew back to Sky Patrol City from Flowing Ice Valley. In just 2 days, they met 3 groups of Taoist cultivators who were heading towards Huan Kingdom. They were disciples from Meng Kingdom and Lian Kingdom. There were many of them, and the cultivators who led the group were in the early and middle stage of the Golden Core realm. It seemed that they were going to make a final attack on the swordsmen of Huan Kingdom. Li Zongbao also found out that one of the groups was heading toward the Flowing Ice Valley. The disciples of the Utopia faction, the Changbai faction, and the Cool Breeze Valley were with them. As for how to attack and where to attack, Li Zongbao didn't ask much. Apparently, the middle-stage Golden Core Realm Master, who was leading the group, wouldn't tell them. After flying for a few more days, Xiaohua was surprised and whispered, Senior brother Li, I feel that something is wrong. Why? Li Zongbao asked. After thinking for a while, Xiaohua muttered, I remember that when we were on our way here, we met many Huan Kingdom swordsmen. Although their cultivation levels varied, they seemed to be obstructing us. However, when we returned to Sky Patrol City today, we did not meet any swordsmen. It's really strange. Li Zongbao smiled and said, Can't you see that the Dao sect cultivators have already gathered in groups and are about to launch a fierce attack on the sword cultivators? Our Dao sect's cultivators do not hide their tracks, and I'm sure that they have already detected us. Therefore, they must have gathered and prepared to face the enemy. Therefore, there are very few disciples patrolling the area and I don't even see them. Perhaps, after this battle, according to the changes in the battlefield, there will be other unforeseen events. Okay. Xiaohua was skeptical, but he knew that he was not as good as Li Zongbao in this aspect, so he did not ask any more questions. On the return journey, Xiao Mao continued to operate the flowing cloud flying ship. Xiaohua sat cross-legged, sometimes closing his eyes, sometimes deep in thought, as if he was thinking of something, but also as if he was concentrating on comprehending something. As for Li Zongbao, after seeing Xiaohua's true strength, he spoke even less than before. However, his attitude towards Xiaohua was not overly respectful because of this. He said what he should say, and also called him Junior Brother Xiao. After more than 10 days, the Sky Patrol City was in sight. Before Xiaohua could stop them, Li Zongbao asked Xiao Mao to stop the airship. Then he looked at Xiaohua and said, Junior Brother Xiao, this Sky Patrol City, you don't have to enter. You can fly faster than us and you have this flowing cloud airship with you. It should be good for you to pass some messages. I will send you to the north of the Sky Patrol City and inform the disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect and the Utopia faction about the battle in the Flowing Ice Valley and the 7 Extremes Mountains. What do you think? Xiaohua knew Li Zongbao's intention. He said with a smile, Senior Brother Li, how can I disobey your order? I will set off now. I just don't know. How can I report to Senior Brother Li after I complete the task? Li Zongbao disagreed and said, After the battle in Flowing Ice Valley, our team of 3 will definitely be famous in Sky Patrol City. At that time, you only need to tell them your name or someone's name, which disciple won't know. After you complete the task, you just need to find Xiao Mao and me. Xiaohua understood Li Zongbao's sincerity. He bowed and said, "Thank you, Senior Brother Li. I will definitely complete the task." "Okay, you can kill the swordsman." Li Zongbao nodded. "The credit is not only yours, but also the credit of the first team of the Imperial Thunder Sect." "I understand." Xiaohua nodded. Then Li Zongbao waved his hand and flew up. Xiao Mao bowed to Xiaohua and flew up after him. "Oh, by the way, Xiao Mao, I have something to tell you." Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and whispered. Xiao Mao stood in the air and listened to Xiaohua's words. He said, "Big brother, please don't worry. I will bring the message. Be careful." After that, Xiao Mao urged his magic power and caught up with Li Zongbao, who had flown far away. They found a hidden transmission array and were transmitted back to the Sky Patrol City together. Seeing the two figures disappear, Xiaohua smiled and released his divine thought. After looking for a moment, he controlled the flowing cloud flying boat to fly to a place. Xiaohua controlled the flying boat to land in a low-lying place. He kept the flying boat and set up a rabbit array. He sat cross-legged and waited quietly. Time passed quickly. Seeing that there was no movement within 100 miles, Xiaohua waved his hand and took out a flying sword from the space. This flying sword was very strange. It was only as thick as a little finger, and only 1 foot long. There were golden threads flashing on it, as if it was condensed from a lot of golden threads. "Is this the invisible sword?" Looking at the invisible golden thread sword floating in the air, Xiaohua scanned it with his divine thought. He felt that there was a strange fluctuation in the golden thread sword that seemed to be able to block his divine thought. However, Xiaohua did not know what kind of fluctuation it was. Was it because of the runes or the material? It's a pity that Qin Jian blew himself up. Not to mention the other 3 flying swords. He didn't even leave the sword bamboo slip behind. Sigh, it's a loss. Xiaohua was speechless. It seemed that the opponents he encountered were getting more and more powerful, and they more or less had life-saving means. Even if his means were not good, he still wanted to drag Xiaohua down with him and perish together with him. Compared to the fruitful results from the previous battles, this was not worth it. This golden thread sword looks very strange. I can't use it. It's really depressing. Xiaohua thought and waved his hand. The sword light on the golden thread sword emitted a strong golden brilliance, and then it was annihilated. It was Xiaohua who killed Qin Jian's primordial spirit in the golden thread sword. If Xiaohua refined the golden thread sword, he would have to kill the sword spirit in it. Then the golden thread sword would turn into a sword pill. When Xiaohua planted it into his primordial spirit, the golden thread sword would become Xiaohua's flying sword, just like the dream executioner. However, Xiaohua had the Devil Realm's concealment technique, so he didn't really need to rely on the invisible sword to become invisible. Moreover, he already had 7 sword orbs in his Buddha fire that were still being nurtured. Adding another sword orb now really didn't have much meaning. He only needed to control the invisible sword and be able to kill people invisibly. He did not need to spend a lot of effort to nurture the sword. Hee, maybe one day I will meet that little girl Guyu and get the method to use the invisible sword from her. Xiaohua's face revealed an indescribable expression. That's right. What was the deal with Qin Jian's flying sword at the end? Xiaohua looked into the distance again, but there was no movement. He put away the golden silk sword, and his consciousness entered the mysterious dark clouds. He thought to himself, it can actually directly kill a soul. This young master's protective golden light didn't have any reaction at all. This is really too scary. If I did not meet Little White in the Yinyang Two Springs Mountain, my life would have been gone. Karma, karma, this is karma. Xiaohua sighed and had already entered the heaven ring. But at this moment, Huanqi still had that kind of hazy appearance of moonlight. In the horizon, the half-moon was faint like an eyebrow, sprinkling its emerald splendor all over. A kind of faint tranquility enveloped the entire Huanqi sky, straight to the point that it was like a quiet night somewhere in Dawn Rain continent. And in this tranquil night sky, a dragon body about 1 zhang long emitted a faint white light and danced without restraint, as if the entire sky was his. Dragon dances 9 heavens. Xiaohua's mind saw and immediately gave birth to a thought. Near the dragon body, Xiaohua's primordial spirit also danced without restraint. Above the primordial spirit, there were many soul strands. These soul strands were very strange. Some slowly elongated, some quickly danced, and even more disappeared in a flash, as if they had grown out of the primordial spirit and were immediately annihilated. Little White Dragon's soul seems to have condensed a lot. This white light was also not there before. Although it looked very faint, there is an essential difference. Xiaohua looked at it and understood. Moreover, with the Little White Dragon's soul accompanying me, this little master's primordial spirit has improved by quite a bit. Not to mention a few years, even if it's just 1 or 2 years. I should be able to break through. Of course, this twilight moon seems to have dimmed a lot. You came, Little White's voice sounded. Oh, you can sense it. Xiaohua was surprised. Little White's current situation was more similar to Little Yellow's. Yes, just now what happened? Little White's voice was still tired. How did a soul sword pierce in? Soul sword? Xiaohua understood and said again. It was an opponent of a sword cultivator. Sword cultivator? Little White did not understand and said. Is there still something like the moon? In a while it will be used up. There is. Xiaohua said with a smile. How many do you want? I will give you. Chapter 2544. As he spoke, Xiaohua took out another piece of the twilight moon and sent it into the heaven ring. Strangely enough, as soon as this full moon entered the heaven ring, it immediately merged with the previous crescent moon, illuminating the entire heaven ring. Very good, Whitey said and shook its dragon body again. That faint white light flickered along with the fluctuation. Many thanks, Whitey. Xiaohua did not want to disturb Whitey any longer, and was about to leave the sky. Thanks. Hehe, Xiaohua, you are too polite. Whitey said in a low voice. I can't wait to have more of these things. Don't. Xiaohua's heart still had lingering fear and almost wanted to wave his hand. If there are too many of these things, my little heart will not be able to take it. All right, you can cultivate. If this full moon is gone, try calling me. Maybe I can hear you. Xiaohua prepared to leave. And I know. Whitey's dragon head shook slightly. Oh right, there are some things in this soul sword that are hard to chew. I will leave it to you. Don't resist. As it spoke, a jade green crystal thread flashed from Whitey's dragon head and slowly shot towards Xiaohua's primordial spirit. Okay. Xiaohua's primordial spirit stopped dancing and waited for the crystal thread to enter his primordial spirit. A jade green light flashed and Xiaohua immediately felt that many things appeared in his mind. After leaving the sky and carefully inspecting these things, Xiaohua was almost overjoyed. It turned out that these were all Qin Jian's sword techniques. Not to mention the method to control the formless golden thread sword. Even the control of the 4-division sword formation. How to connect the flying swords. How to speed up. How to condense the soul sword were all detailed. What made Xiaohua the happiest was that Qin Jian actually had the primordial spirit sword technique. It was also the secret sword technique that he had been looking for. Ha, this young master understands. Xiaohua was wild with joy when he saw so many things. After a long while he came to his senses. This soul sword is condensed from the soul, so it must have Qin Jian's memories. This soul sword was actually swallowed by Whitey, and Qin Jian's memories were also obtained by Whitey. Ha. It's really a case of searching high and low only to find it by chance. That's right. It's probably because most of Qin Jian's soul has been devoured that Qin Jian's soul can't completely fuse with his flying sword. That's why he can't maintain his flying sword form for long. That's why he can't maintain his flying sword form after he self-destructed. That's why he reverted back to his fleshly body. Xiaohua suddenly came to a realization. Fine. Xiaohua sighed. If I hadn't saved the little white dragon's soul, how could I have obtained these things? The primordial spirit sword controlling technique. I'll take a look at these first. After saying that, Xiaohua closed his eyes and calmed himself down to comprehend the secret technique he had always wanted. However, at this moment, a loud rumbling sound could be heard from the direction of Sky Patrol City. Oh, Xiaohua was slightly taken aback. Could it be that something happened in Sky Patrol City? When Xiaohua looked over, he saw smoke rising into the sky from the direction of Sky Patrol City. Many flying boats were flying toward him. Behind the flying boats, there were figures of cultivators from various sects flying out of Sky Patrol City. There's something going on in the conference hall again. Xiaohua immediately thought of what Li Zongbao said and thought to himself, after this battle, regardless of victory or defeat, I'm afraid that the Sword Transformation Realm and Nascent Soul Realm cultivators will come to the vicinity of Sky Patrol City. Damn it, I've killed so many illusory swords. Will those Sword Transformation Realm cultivators come after me? And that old ghost, Jing Ran, should be coming too. Others are looking forward to the arrival of the Nascent Soul Realm cultivators, but I'm scared. Thinking that the battle had finally reached the second stage, and the Nascent Soul Realm cultivators were finally coming, Xiaohua's heart felt heavy. What will come will come. Time is like the morning sun. It can only move forward. Xiaohua sighed. Hiding in the formation, he was not in the mood to cultivate. Looking at the many flying boats flying over his head and the disciples of various sects, he thought to himself. However, right at this moment, an extremely small thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Time is like the sun, it can only move forward? If light can be reversed, then can time be reversed? Of course, this thought only flashed in his mind. Time flow backward. What kind of magical power was that? At this moment, in Xiaohua's mind, this was just a guess. He did not even think that such a powerful person could exist in this time. This was simply illogical. It actually took an hour for all the cultivators to fly over. The number of cultivators was so large that it really made Xiaohua astonished. Maybe while Xiaohua was hesitating, a figure flew over from the direction of Sky Patrol City. He flew very slowly and his divine sense swept left and right as if he was looking for something. You're finally here. Seeing this, Xiaohua removed the formation and flew into the air. The person who came was Bai Fengliang, whom Xiaohua had asked Xiao Mao to look for. Fellow Taoist Xiao. Bai Fengliang saw Xiaohua hurriedly fly over and hurriedly bowed. It's really troublesome to leave the city today. I'm late, please forgive me. It's okay. Xiaohua had just seen the cultivators of the Dao sect leave the city. Of course, he knew that it was difficult for Bai Fengliang to come out of Sky Patrol City. He waved his hand and smiled. How's the thing I asked you to prepare? I'll let you know. Now that the Golden Core disciples of various sects have gathered in Sky Patrol City, it's quite difficult for our Holy Gate disciples to go in and out. The number of pills sent over is not very large. Bai Fengliang took out a storage bag from his waist and handed it over respectfully. He said, "These are the Holy Gate disciples from various big cities. Please check." Hearing Bai Fengliang mention the difficulty, Xiaohua knew that there were not many pills in the bag. However, when he took a look, he was shocked. There were nearly 400 Qianli pills, and even dozens of Huayuan pills. Oh my, this is still not a lot. Bai Fengliang paid attention to Xiaohua's expression. Seeing that Xiaohua's expression was not right, he muttered in his heart. He hurriedly smiled and said, "However, I've already told the other disciples that this is specially designated by the sect leader's order. They must spare no expense in terms of money and manpower. No need." Xiaohua estimated that he had used 360 building foundation dawn to build his foundation. Even if he had condensed his core, he would not have used more than 360 building foundation dawn. There were nearly 500 dry separation dawn here, which should be enough. These dawn are already enough. You can pass down the sect leader's order that there is no need to collect these pills. Yes, I understand. Bai Fengliang let out a long breath. With Xiaohua's words, his task was completed, and it was completed perfectly. Now that all the Golden Core cultivators have gathered in Sky Patrol City, and I just saw a lot of Dao sect disciples coming out of the city, I'm afraid that there will be a war between Huan country and Shi country. You're not safe here, so it's better for you to leave early. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "With the message talisman that I gave you, I'm sure you'll be rewarded handsomely." "Thank you for your generous gift, Brother Xiao." Bai Fengliang bowed and thanked him. Then he asked hesitantly, "I just don't know. The previous agreement between me and Brother Xiao, you and I have an agreement? Why didn't I know about it?" Xiao Hua said with a smile. Yes, yes, I was muddle-headed. Bai Fengliang hurriedly smiled. He scanned the surroundings with his divine thought and said in a low voice, I'll leave Sky Patrol City now. However, I received news a few days ago that my holy gate might be making a big move. As for where it is, I don't know. That's enough. Xiao Hua waved his hand. This is your business. It has nothing to do with me. If there's nothing else, I have to go somewhere else. Brother Bai, we'll meet again if fate wills it. Yes, I'll see you off. Bai Fengliang said with a smile. The war between Dao and sword is very dangerous. I hope you take care of yourself. I look forward to the day when you're pregnant. Haha, I'll borrow fellow Daoist Bai's auspicious words. If that day ever comes, I'll definitely remember what fellow Daoist Bai has done for me. Xiao Hua laughed as he flew up into the air. He cupped his hands towards Bai Fengliang before turning around and leaving. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua did not know that he would never be able to see Bai Fengliang again, even if he was pregnant. After all, Bai Fengliang knew the relationship between Xiao Hua and Zhang Qingxiao. Xiao Hua was kind-hearted and would not be ruthless to Bai Fengliang. But why would Zhang Qingxiao care about this? He would do anything to protect his loved ones. In the past, it was Xiao Yuehong and the others. Now it was Xiao Xinrui. Since Xiao Hua admitted that he was Shang Huaming's disciple, he would never allow any element that could threaten Xiao Hua. What's more, Xiao Hua's usefulness to him was more than the value of a junior brother. Bai Fengliang, a rogue cultivator who had bitterly pursued cultivation, finally had the opportunity to reach the foundation establishment stage and cultivate. However, because of a simple mission, all of his efforts had gone to waste and he had lost his life. He was like a wave in flowing ice valley, only surging under the sun for a moment before falling back into the river, never to be seen again. Some people have destinies, but their destinies are not in their hands. My destiny is in my own hands, not in the hands of God. Sometimes it is a self-comforting joke. Xiao Hua flew into the air. He did not know that a cultivator who had been bitterly pursuing cultivation had decided his fate just because he saw him. He only needed to identify the direction slightly before he flew towards the northwest. After all, to him, a direction was just a direction. He would only stop when it was about time to search for his destination in detail. Along the way, what he needed to do was to comprehend the primordial spirit sword controlling technique. Xiao Hua did not need to rely on the primordial spirit to control the sword, but he needed the primordial spirit sword controlling technique. He wanted to learn from this technique, so that his primordial spirit could do something in the space and not just be a passerby. The primordial spirit sword controlling technique was a secret technique that could be cultivated by swordsmen. It was not easy to comprehend. Not to mention Xiao Hua, who was pondering and comprehending along the way. There was a lot of discussion in the meeting hall of Sky Patrol City. Today's shift was Hung Heng from the Utopia faction. Hung Heng's face was expressionless, but he was a little indifferent. He sat on the futon and glanced at the gold core cultivators. Chapter 2545. When the discussion died down, Hung Feng coughed twice and said, Fellow cultivators, according to our previous discussion, we have sent out more than half of the disciples from the 300 sects in Sky Patrol City. As for the remaining disciples, we will wait for more than 10 days for more accurate information. Then we will lead them directly into the Huan Kingdom. The days when we sit in the conference hall are about to end. Alas, I really want to see where that arrogant Qin Jian is. Our nascent soul stage masters are about to arrive, but this guy has not been killed yet. How shameful. Humph, fellow cultivator Hung Ming. Wang Yi sneered. According to the latest news, Qin Jian's cultivation is at the 3rd grade of the illusory sword stage. His attack is comparable to that of a nascent soul stage cultivator. Do you think you can take it safely? Hung Feng knew that Wang Yi from the 7 Skills sect was unhappy about his renting the flowing cloud airship, so he objected. However, he did not care and said with a smile, even if Qin Jian's attack is comparable to that of a nascent soul stage cultivator, it is only a casual attack from a nascent soul stage cultivator. I am not talented, so how can I not dodge it? Besides, I am not as stupid as some people who do not use their strengths and give their weaknesses to others. I have magic weapons, spells and talismans that can attack Qingjian. Why should I fight him head-on? Alas, the disciples of the Seven Skills sect have foresight. We will not do something like throwing an egg against a rock. Wang Yi stretched his back and said, unlike some people who clamored to kill Qingjian the moment they stepped out. It has been so many years, but they did not even touch a hair of Qingjian's. I don't know if they are really capable. Speaking of this, Wang Yi suddenly realized something. He patted his forehead and said, oh right, I forgot. How can the so-called number 1 cultivator below the golden core stage compete with an illusory swordsman? Everything is just a gimmick. Wang Yi. Heng Zhao was enraged. Our Utopia faction finally has some people with backbone who dared to kill Qingjian. And after all, we did it. How can we compare to your Seven Skills sect? Your flying boat fell into the hands of a sword cultivator and was taken back by a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. You still have the audacity to demand it back. Ha ha ha. So it wasn't a disciple of the Utopia faction who stole the flying boat. Wang Yi laughed instead of getting angry. Fellow Taoists, the Taiching sect's De Sun said with dissatisfaction. The conference hall is a place where the cultivators of the 3 states discuss matters. It is not a place where the various sects quarrel. Today is fellow Taoist Heng Ming's turn, so how can there be no rules? Heng Ji's expression froze as he cupped his fists and said, thank you for your reminder, fellow Taoist De Sun. I have some surging qi and blood today, and I feel that something is wrong. I have indeed lost my composure. Oh, is it about the dispatch of the disciples of the various sects? De Sun asked hastily. He didn't dare to be careless when he heard Heng Teng's words. Heng Teng smiled bitterly and shook his head. He looked around and asked, I don't know, so I wanted to ask for your opinion just now. Lu Xingwu of the Shanghua sect smiled and said, fellow Taoist Heng Ming, you worry too much. We have already made ample preparations before. We launched a surprise attack on the spirit stone veins occupied by the sword cultivators, as well as some of their strongholds. Now the battle reports from various places have already come in, and the distribution of the sword cultivators' forces has gradually become clear. Just now, fellow Taoist Heng Ming sent out the troops with great discretion, completely in line with our previous discussion. The half of the disciples that were sent out just now were the vanguard, and we will bring the other half of the disciples as the backup, to make up for the loopholes of the first batch of disciples. Isn't this the same as killing the sword cultivators without leaving a single one alive? Fellow Taoist Lu, you are too optimistic. De Sun shook his head and said, according to the previous news, the sword cultivators have also perceived our scheme, and it seems that they are once again dispatching swordsmen from the Huan Kingdom. Aren't there already many level 6 swordsmen in the strongholds of the sword cultivators? According to the report, they are all decisive and ruthless people. According to this old man's conjecture, they should have been dispatched from the place where the sword cultivators and soul cultivators are fighting. Say these sword cultivators also deserve to die. Over there they are fighting with soul cultivators, and over here they are fighting with us cultivators. They are really too idle. Fellow Taoist Yuan is wrong. If they don't fight with us cultivators, how can they train swordsmen? How can they seize the spirit stone veins? AI fellow Taoist Su still didn't get to the point. Ko Xiangling of the Yini sect chuckled and said, this war is different from the past. The sword cultivators are not only training swordsmen, but more importantly, seizing the spirit stone veins. Now that the spiritual chi of heaven and earth has changed, the spirit stone veins of our Dawn Rain continent are rare, and their Huan Kingdom spirit stone veins aren't enough, so they can only come to the Shi Kingdom and the Lian Kingdom to seize the spirit stone veins. Hehe, it's good that we saw the opportunity early. Just at the beginning of the war, we sent disciples to strengthen the defense of the spirit stone veins. Except for some small veins that were seized by the sword cultivators, the other spirit stone veins are safe and sound. The Sun said with a smile. Fellow Taoist Ko is right. Heng Lu nodded. From the information we received, the sword cultivators placed many disciples in the spirit stone veins, far more than their strongholds. If their goal isn't the spirit stone veins, even if you beat me to death, I won't believe it. Yes, the battle report from the Feng Meng mountain range of the Lian Kingdom has also been sent. The number of swordsmen there is much less than at the beginning of the war. They must have been transferred to the Shi Kingdom. The Fengmeng mountain range of the Lian Kingdom doesn't have any spirit stone veins. The Huan Kingdom's swordsmen placed their swordsmen there to create a diversion, so that we wouldn't know that they wanted to seize the spirit stone veins. Huang Feng of the exotic beast sect interrupted. So the Lian Kingdom's disciples stationed in the Fengmeng mountain range didn't suffer a great loss. Li Jijia of the Changbai sect suddenly said. For this war, shouldn't we transfer more disciples from the Lian Kingdom? When Hung Lu heard this, he was a little unhappy and said coldly, the disciples of the Lian Kingdom are very familiar with the Fengmeng mountain range. If it were the disciples of the Shi Kingdom or the Ming Kingdom, I'm afraid it wouldn't be appropriate, right? Besides, the disciples of the Utopia faction, the Kunlun sect, and the Cool Breeze Valley are all fighting against the sword cultivators in the Huan Kingdom, right? They aren't any worse than your Changbai sect's disciples. Fellow Taoist Hung Ming, De Sun reminded again. In the meeting hall, we have to discuss the matter as it is, don't mention specific sects. Now that half of the disciples in the Sky Patrol City have been transferred to attack the sword cultivators of the Huan Kingdom, shouldn't we report the latest battle report and the situation to our respective sects? Yes, Hung Lu was a little embarrassed and nodded. That's the right thing to do. Then, Hung Lu transmitted his voice to Xiong Huasong. Fellow Taoist Xiong, how's the big formation you set up in the sword catacomb? Haha, I'll let you know. Xiong Huasong glanced at the Golden Core cultivators on duty in the meeting hall and transmitted his voice back. Fellow Taoist, do you know about the Grand Ten Forces Annihilation Formation? Hiss. Hung Lu gasped and said. That's the legendary ominous formation of my Taoist sect. Could it be that the Black Heaven sect still has this formation? How is that possible? Xiong Huasong laughed. If the Black Heaven sect had this formation, wouldn't it have dominated the Ming Kingdom long ago? Haha, fellow Taoist, don't think too much. After our last meeting, I sent my trusted disciples to transfer the last batch of disciples to the vicinity of the sword catacomb with the order of the meeting hall. I dare to pat my chest and guarantee that this transfer will be done secretly. Not only the Sky Patrol City won't be able to find out, even the sword cultivators won't be able to find out. Thank you for your trouble, fellow Taoist Xiong. Hung Lu nodded and said. Moreover, I secretly contacted the sect leader of the Black Heaven sect, Fairy Fian, at the station of the Black Heaven sect and obtained her approval. She even repaired the incomplete map of the Grand Ten Forces Annihilation Formation, which is also known as the Minor Grand Ten Forces Annihilation Formation, and she gave it to me. Haha, I've already started it and handed it over to my disciples to coordinate with the disciples of the 10 sects to set it up. Once the matter here is settled, all of you will head to the sword catacomb for the war. Regardless of the result of the war, let's set up this Grand Ten Forces Annihilation Formation first. Great. Hung Lu nodded with a smile and transmitted the situation to the Golden Core cultivators of the 10 sects. Hearing that there was a backup plan, everyone was slightly relieved. However, there was another piece of news that surprised everyone in the meeting hall. Yuan Zhongyu of the Kunlun sect said, I have a piece of news that I'm afraid will shock everyone. Oh? Hung Lu asked curiously. Could it be that the sword cultivators have some new movements? Yes. Yuan Zhongyu nodded with an extremely serious expression. That's right. My Kunlun sect disciples went to the northern clear cave to investigate the strength of the sword cultivators. When some of the disciples were being chased by the sword cultivators, they discovered that the sword cultivators had built a huge ice wall near the Zhao family of the clear cave. The sword cultivators had built a huge ice wall, and inside the wall was a large city. The interior of the ice city was extremely simple, but the area covered by the ice city was very large. It was probably the gathering place of the sword cultivators nearby. Of course, they couldn't see clearly how many sword cultivators there were in the ice city in their panic. They estimated that there were more than 100,000 of them. That's what I said. The son of the Taiching sect snorted coldly. Back then, when the sword cultivators invaded my Dao sect, the first thing they did was to destroy the Zhao family of the clear cave. I found it suspicious. So that's what they were planning. The terrain of the clear cave is dangerous and easy to defend but hard to attack. It's suitable to be a stronghold for the sword cultivators. Yes, with fellow Yuan's news, we naturally understand why the sword cultivators had been hiding for so many years. Hung Lu nodded and said, "This so-called Ice City must have more than 100,000 sword cultivators. We must send enough disciples to destroy this stronghold." "That's right." Yuan Zhongyu cupped his hands and said, "My Kunlun sect is willing to be the main force in this attack on the Ice City." "Good." Hung Lu clapped and looked at the others. "Which other sects are willing to go?" Immediately, a few other sects, including the Imperial Thunder sect, voiced their agreement. Hung Lu and the others discussed for a while and decided. When the matter of the sword cultivators suddenly appearing in the Ice City was over, Zhu Jun of the Cool Breeze Valley hesitated and said in a low voice, "Fellow Hung Ming, the disciples that my Cool Breeze Valley sent to the Flowing Ice Valley have not sent any specific information." Chapter 2546. Haha, it's okay. There are disciples from the Utopia faction and the Changbai sect, as well as Ai's junior brother leading the team. There won't be any problems. Hung Ming smiled. Besides, the Flowing Ice Valley is not a special place. What kind of battle can there be? Needless to say, it was still the same as before. Cultivators with high cultivation were not necessarily good at arranging troops. If Tu Hong was here, he would not have said so. Well, even if he said so, many cultivators would not agree. After all, the Flowing Ice Valley used to be the spiritual stone mine of the Sky Patrol City. Who knew if Tu Hong had any selfish motives? Besides, Cultivator Qian Mo and Cultivator Peng Dai have not returned yet. Ji Hong of the Bright Leaf sect reminded. Ko Xiangling of the Yongyi sect also muttered. There is no news about the disciples of the Yongyi sect, the Mozong Mountain, the Imperial Thunder sect, and the Huanhua sect who went to the Seven Extremes Mountains. The two spiritual stone mines of the Sky Patrol City are really far away from the Sky Patrol City. Hung Ming smiled bitterly. These two spiritual stone mines are just very small. How many swordsmen can there be? While they were talking, they saw a flash of brilliance in the middle of the meeting hall. "Oh, speak of fellow Daoist Qian, and fellow Daoist Qian will arrive." Hung Ming waved his hand and the brilliance gradually solidified. It was Qian Mo of the Imperial Thunder sect and Peng Dai of the Su Yen sect. "Both of you have worked hard." Seeing Qian Mo's unfriendly face and even a little frown, Hung Ming's heart skipped a beat. Although he said that, he muttered in his heart. Could it be that my uneasiness has something to do with Li Qingxiu? It's not hard. It's a pity that we still can't do anything. Qian Mo glanced at Peng Dai. The two of them sat back on the futon and said, "We only found the place where Li Qingxiu died. As for how Cultivator Li died and who killed him, we have no clue at all." "Oh, where did Cultivator Li die?" Hung Ming frowned and asked hurriedly. "Is there no trace of him nearby?" "Fellow Daoist Li died in the northwest of Sky Patrol City. It's called Prison Dragon Ridge. There aren't any sword cultivator strongholds nearby, let alone spirit stone veins." Peng Dai looked at Qian Mo and replied, "If I were to force myself to say it, there is a spirit stone mine of the Shanghua sect in the west, a Seven Extremes Ridge in the north, which can be considered a spirit stone mine. In the northwest, there are more than 10 sword cultivator strongholds. However, those settlements and mines were too far away from the place where fellow cultivator Li perished. Even in that place, a swordsman of the third grade of the illusory sword realm might appear." "Fellow Daoist Peng, can you explain in more detail?" Hung Li was baffled. "All right, fellow Daoist Hung Ming knows." Peng Dai glanced at Qian Mo and said, "I and fellow Daoist Qian brought the conference hall token, but we didn't find any records of fellow Daoist Li's teleportation in the Sky Patrol City's teleportation array. It seems that fellow Daoist Li must have left through the city gate. However, fellow Daoist Hung Ming should know that the Sky Patrol City's gate guards don't record any exits. We asked a lot of city guards and finally got some clues. However, after we flew out, we didn't find any signs left behind by fellow Daoist Li. Later, fellow Daoist Qian was careful and used the secret technique of the Imperial Thunder sect. Through the protection talisman given by fellow Daoist Qian's sect, We found fellow Taoist Li's aura in Prison Dragon Ridge. As for the place where fellow Taoist Li perished, it was between several mountain peaks in Prison Dragon Ridge. The place was severely damaged by the battle. Moreover, because of fellow Taoist Li's self-explosion, all traces of magic arts disappeared. It was impossible to find. Peng Dai said simply. If there was the secret technique of the immortal music sect, we might be able to find some traces from fellow Taoist Li's aura. However, there are no disciples of the immortal music sect in the late stage of the Gold Core realm in the Sky Patrol City, let alone a nascent Soul Realm master. We can only explore this place. Is there nothing special about it? Desun couldn't help but ask. If that's the case, I'm afraid we can't explain it to Fairy Ma Yingxia. There is something special, but fellow Taoist Qian Mo can explain it to us. Peng Dai glanced at Qian Mo, who was silent. Oh. Everyone was surprised and looked at Qian Mo. Qian Mo sighed and said, the place where fellow Taoist Li perished has traces of a magic array. It seems that fellow Taoist Li fell into an ambush and was killed. Purely from this point of view, it should be the work of sword cultivator Qin Jian. Qin Jian actually killed fellow Taoist Li? Hung Ming gasped. This guy is too arrogant, isn't he? I'm just saying it's possible. Qian Mo declined to comment. In addition to the traces of a magic array, the surrounding water element and fire element spiritual qi of heaven and earth are especially rich. If I'm not mistaken, there should be a magic treasure of innate primordial water, or innate primordial fire. However, fellow Taoist Li had already self-exploded. As for his magic treasure, I don't know. Perhaps the innate primordial water and innate primordial fire belong to his magic treasure. Of course, it could also be a flying sword refined by these two innate items. In that case, there should be two swordsmen of the illusory sword sect who killed fellow Taoist Li. Hung Ming was enlightened. Otherwise, fellow Taoist Li could easily escape from the sword array with the spiritual talismans given by our sect. It's not just that. Qian Mo continued. The place where fellow Taoist Li died seemed to have the aura of another spiritual talisman. It seemed to be made by a nascent soul realm cultivator. Fellow Taoist Li had spiritual talismans made by two nascent soul realm cultivators? This still couldn't escape from Qin Jian's killing. Hung Ming sighed. I wonder what fellow Taoist Li went to Prison Dragon Ridge for? Fellow Taoist Hung Ming, things don't seem to be that simple. Qian Mo didn't answer. Instead, he said, just now I said that there were traces of a magic array in Prison Dragon Ridge and not a sword array. This means that the magic array was set up by fellow Taoist Li. Perhaps he wanted to kill Qin Jian. Not to mention Li Qingxiu. Even all the Golden Core realm cultivators in the conference hall wanted to kill Qin Jian. If Li Qingxiu was confident, it was possible that he set up another ambush. Anything else? Hung Ming asked. Yes. Qian Mo nodded. There's something that I find most inconceivable. What? Everyone's interest was piqued. At the place where fellow Taoist Li died in Prison Dragon Ridge, I found traces of my Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple. Qian Mo said slowly. Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple? Why did he go there? Hung Ming asked curiously. Then he realized something. Oh, the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple went to 7 Extremes Ridge. I'm afraid he passed by there? After I returned to Sky Patrol City, I went to the station first. Although many disciples were sent out, I still found something strange. Qian Mo glanced at Peng Dai and said, my Earth Thunder Palace's Golden Core disciple Marshal Kuan also disappeared mysteriously. According to my contact with the sect, his natal spiritual tablet was broken. Moreover, the time he left the station was about the same time as fellow Taoist Li Qingxiu left Sky Patrol City. Are there any traces of Marshal Kuan's corpse or other traces in Prison Dragon Ridge? No. However, I can sense the strength of a Golden Core realm disciple through my sect's secret method. Qian Mo shook his head. In addition, we found out too late. More than 10 days have passed. Otherwise, we would have known more. In that case, fellow Taoist Li Qingxiu and fellow Taoist Kuran must have joined forces and set up a Dharma formation in Prison Dragon Ridge to lure Qin Jian, or other swordsmen into an ambush. In the end, their magic power was not enough, and they were killed by 2 or more swordsmen. Hung Ming frowned and thought for a while before asking tentatively. Yes, that should be the case. Qian Mo nodded. There were also traces of flying swords at the place where fellow Taoist Li died in Prison Dragon Ridge. Especially fellow Taoist Peng, who carefully found some traces of flying swords piercing into the mountain peak, more than 1,000 feet away from where fellow Taoist Li died. The flying swords pierced deeply into the mountain peak. They must have been sent flying when the swordsmen were fighting with fellow Taoist Li. Or perhaps they were sent flying when fellow Taoist Li self-destructed. But no matter what, those are flying swords of the swordsmen. It could also be the flying swords of our cultivators. A golden core realm cultivator muttered softly. This fellow Taoist is right, Qian Mo said without hesitation. It could also be an ambush set up by a golden core realm cultivator, who had some grudges with fellow Taoist Li. Li Jijia of the Changbai sect did not look good. Speaking of which, other than sword cultivators, the Changbai sect was famous for their flying swords. Although the disciples of other sects had their own flying swords, since it was mentioned in the meeting hall, it was naturally hinting at the Changbai sect. I don't think I have any grudges with fellow Taoist Li Qingxiu, Li Jijia said coldly. And I don't think any disciple of the Changbai sect is a match for fellow Taoist Li. Hee fellow Taoist Li, you think too much. Qian Mo laughed. These are all guesses, you can't take them seriously. Besides, if there really was a cultivator who wanted to kill fellow Taoist Li Qingxiu, how many people in the Sentry City could be his match? Aren't those who could be his match all sitting in the meeting hall? Li Jijia snorted coldly and did not say anything else. But there's one more thing that I'm puzzled about, Qian Mo said again. I've never heard that Marshal Kuan knew fellow Taoist Li Qingxiu. And Marshal Kuan just arrived in the Sentry City. There's nothing strange about this, Hung Li said in a low voice. How can a cultivator's good friend be known by others? Maybe Marshal Kuan already knew Li Qingxiu? Or maybe Marshal Kuan had news about Qin Jian and informed Li Qingxiu, who was good friends with him. At this point, everyone basically understood that only such a conjecture could be closest to reality. By the way, fellow Taoist Qian Mo, the Prison Dragon Ridge that you went to is not very far from the 7 Extremes Mountains. Your disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect went to the 7 Extremes Mountains to check it out. Didn't you go and take a look? Hung Li thought of something and asked in a low voice. Of course I know that my disciples went to the 7 Extremes Mountains. Qian Mo nodded. It should be Qinsheng's leader. But I have to investigate fellow Taoist Li Qingxiu's matter. How can I neglect my work for personal reasons? At this point, Qian Mo suddenly realized something. What? There's no news about the 7 Extremes Mountains? Fellow Taoist Qian, you didn't ask when you returned to the station. Hung Li was even more surprised. Chapter 2547. I really didn't ask anything, Qian Mo said seriously. I only checked the whereabouts of some gold core disciples, and then I used a secret technique to contact the sect. Well, thank you, fellow cultivator Qian. Hung Zhao nodded and said, there's no news from 7 Extremes Ridge, and there's no news from Flowing Ice Valley. Alas, fellow cultivator Hung Ming, our sect's communication technique is too backward. Qian Mo sighed. Even the communication between the Sky Patrol City and the sect is fixed. Our sect's disciples are fighting in Huan country, and we can't grasp their whereabouts in time. Hung Zhao smiled bitterly and spread out his hands. Secret techniques such as the communication spell have long been lost in our Xiaoyu continent. The ones that can be used now are left behind from the past. Every sect has racked their brains, but they still can't find these lost secret techniques. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so passive in this war. De Sun smiled and said, Flowing Ice Valley and 7 Extremes Ridge are small places. We sent disciples from the Thunder Controlling sect, the Huanhua sect, the Mozong Mountain, the Yongyi sect, the Utopia faction, the Changbai sect, and the Cool Breeze Valley. There shouldn't be any accidents. Even if we can't defeat them, we can retreat calmly and act according to our previous plan. If we're all defeated, then there's no future plan. There should have been a message from the second batch of disciples. Haha, it should be so. Qianemo nodded. After all, he came back from the prison Dragon Ridge, and he didn't see the defeated disciples of the thunder-controlling sect. At this time, the air in the conference hall flashed again, but this time it was different from Qianmo's. Oh, there's news from the disciples of the Sky Patrol City? Hung Ming frowned slightly. Could it be the situation in Seven Extremes Ridge or Flowing Ice Valley? As he spoke, Hung Zhao led in a guard of the Sky Patrol City, who was in the late stage of foundation establishment. The guard showed himself and bowed. Master of the conference hall, the disciples of the Sky Patrol City killed more than 10 sword cultivators when they were patrolling outside the city. There's a communication jade slip from the disciples of our sect. I didn't dare to delay, so I brought it here. As he spoke, the disciple took out a few pieces of jade talisman and handed them to Hung Zhao respectfully. Wow! Hung Yu took it and opened his mouth as if he wanted to ask something, but he closed it again and waved his hand to signal the city guard to leave. Ever since Tu Hong was assassinated, the Sky Patrol City had expanded the scope of inspection. The area outside the city that the city guard mentioned was no longer within 100 miles at the beginning of the battle. The jade slip might have been found hundreds or even thousands of miles away. Hung Ming wanted to ask where the jade slip was found, but after thinking for a while he kept quiet. He threw the jade in his hand into the air and cast a few strange seals on it. A moment later, a red light appeared on the jade like a bubble. Once the light disappeared, Hung waved his hand and a jade appeared in his hand. After reading it with his divine sense, he threw it aside. It was clear that he already knew the information inside. When he saw the second jade slip, Hung Zhao's face was filled with surprise and joy. He immediately tossed the jade slip to Qianemo and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Qian from the Imperial Thunder Sect should take a look at this first. Your Imperial Thunder Sect really gives us a surprise." Then he looked at the rest of the jade slips one by one, but he just skimmed through them and didn't show them to the other cultivators. After Hung Zhao put away the jade slips, he looked up and stared at Qianemo again. Seeing the surprised look on Qianmo's face, not only the other cultivators who didn't know the situation, but even Hung Zhao was puzzled. What? Fellow Taoist Qian, this John Doe, isn't he a disciple sent by the Imperial Thunder Sect this time? Hung Zhao asked. Fellow Taoist Hung Ming, fellow Taoist Qianemo, what's going on? Peng Dai asked curiously. Among the crowd, there were a few people who said impatiently, "What's going on with the Imperial Thunder Sect? Don't give us any riddles." Hee, I'll let you all know that our Imperial Thunder Sect, Huanhua Sect, Yongyi Sect, and Mozong Mountain disciples have won a great victory in the Seven Extremes Ridge. Not only did we expel the sword cultivator disciples from the Seven Extremes Ridge, but we also killed 2 second-grade illusory swordsmen. What's more, according to the Jade Slip, there's a late-stage Golden Core senior brother from the Imperial Thunder Sect called John Doe who assisted the Huanhua Sect in killing a second-grade illusory swordswoman. He even killed a suspected third-grade illusory sword weapon cultivator. Unfortunately, this senior brother from the Imperial Thunder Sect doesn't like killing, so he let the group of swordsmen go. What? When did the Imperial Thunder Sect send a late-stage Golden Core senior brother? De Sun was surprised. Looking at the crowd's bright and doubtful eyes, Qianemo smiled bitterly and waved his hand at everyone. According to what I know, before our sect leader Qian Lazy came to Sky Patrol City, our Imperial Thunder Sect, like the other sects, wouldn't send any late-stage Golden Core disciples. This late-stage Golden Core senior brother named John Doe is definitely not a disciple who participated in this battle. But according to the Jade Slip, this senior brother is wearing a participating disciple's robe. Hung Li asked, "Fellow Taoist Qian, can you show the Jade Slip to the other fellow Taoists?" Qianemo hesitated for a moment, then passed the Jade Slip to Huaping from the blazing fire mountain beside him. He bit his lips slightly, thinking about something. His eyebrows were knitted together, showing his deep confusion. "Fellow Taoist Qian?" Hung Li raised his eyebrows. "Do you have something to say? Could it be that this senior brother John Doe is a surprise from the Imperial Thunder Sect?" I really don't know." Qianemo smiled bitterly. "A late-stage Golden Core senior brother is coming to Sky Patrol City. Even if he didn't greet me, I can't blame him. Moreover, he's wearing a participating disciple's robe. I'm afraid he doesn't want others to know his face, right? Hee John Doe, doesn't that mean he doesn't have a name? Huaping finished reading the jade slip and passed it to the others. She glanced at Qian Mo and said, "This senior brother is really interesting. Your Imperial Thunder Sect's cultivators are also interesting." Oh right, Black Sky Sect's Xiong Huasong thought of something and said, "Speaking of interesting Imperial Thunder Sect's cultivators, I thought of a Imperial Thunder Sect disciple who is known as the Horrifying Phoenix." Horrifying Phoenix? Qian Mo was stunned. When did my Imperial Thunder Sect have such a disciple? Fellow Taoist Qian doesn't know? This time it was Xiong Huasong's turn to be shocked. This Horrifying Phoenix was something I heard from a participating disciple a year ago. It said that this Horrifying Phoenix's name is extremely famous among sword cultivators. It's even more famous than Qin Jian. It's almost to the point where sword cultivators tremble in fear upon hearing its name. How is this possible? Such a famous name. How can I not know? Qian Mo was completely dumbfounded. Such a ferocious Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple should be famous in the sect. How could he not know anything about it? Fellow Taoist Xiong, the name you mentioned is correct, but the rumors are wrong. Kunlun Sect's Yuan Zhongjue also laughed. I also heard about it a year ago. However, this Horrifying Phoenix is a disciple of an aristocratic family who entered the Imperial Thunder Sect. He has the true bloodline of the Phoenix in him. Every time he fights with sword cultivators, he releases his Phoenix celestial body. That Phoenix celestial body is extremely powerful. All the flying swords of sword cultivators are destroyed by the Phoenix celestial body. Moreover, this Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple is extremely cruel. No matter if it's a sword cultivator, 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 or a sword cultivator. Therefore, he's feared by sword cultivators. This Qian Mo's face was burning. He really didn't know that there was such a powerful Imperial Thunder Sect disciple under his command. Now that someone said it in front of him, his old face couldn't bear it anymore. Oh, could it be that fellow Taoist Qian really doesn't know? Huaping saw the clue and said curiously, "Such a powerful disciple, I don't think any other disciple in the sect can be a match for him." That's why you didn't mention it, and I didn't have the face to mention it. Could it be him, who said that no one in our sect can be compared to this Horrifying Phoenix? Heng Zhao was displeased. Li Zongbao of the Utopia sect is the strongest person below the Golden Core stage. His cultivation is much higher than this Horrifying Phoenix. However, he doesn't kill innocent people, so he's not famous. This Horrifying Phoenix is a Foundation establishment disciple? Qian Mo came to his senses and asked anxiously. Yes, I heard that this Horrifying Phoenix is a disciple in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage. Heng Zhao replied. No, he's obviously a disciple in the late stage of the Foundation establishment stage. Huaping corrected. If he's not in the late stage of the Foundation establishment stage, how can he kill the Bright Sword swordsman? No. The Sun shook his head. You're all wrong. The Horrifying Phoenix is a disciple in the early stage of the Foundation establishment stage. It's just that he killed too many sword-bearing disciples, so his reputation gradually spread, making the Bright Sword disciples terrifying. It said that he even killed a few Bright Sword disciples in front of them, so he became famous. Oh, so he's a Foundation establishment disciple. He also killed sword-bearing swordsmen and Bright Sword swordsmen, so it's no wonder that I didn't know. Qian Mo heaved a sigh of relief and said with a smile, I'm ashamed to say this, but I really didn't know. I'm afraid that the 8 leaders of the Thunder Palace didn't report it to me because they saw that this disciple was killing all the disciples who were pregnant with swords, which made them feel a little ashamed. Besides, more than a year ago, I was busy with the affairs of the Sky Patrol City, so I didn't know much about the battlefield. When I go back, I'll ask around and bring this mysterious Horrifying Phoenix to all of you. Damn it, fellow cultivator Qian, your Imperial Thunder Sect is really something. Previously, there was a famous Horrifying Phoenix, And now there's a mysterious senior brother nameless. Your Imperial Thunder sect has stolen the limelight from hundreds of other sects. Cheng Ming of the Celestial Ascension sect said with a smile. Let the disciples call the horrifying phoenix here, or ask them who the horrifying phoenix is. Heng Zhao was a little unconvinced. Let me see who the Imperial Thunder sect disciple, who killed the sword-bearing swordsman is. Okay. In fact, Qian Mo was also very curious. He wanted to know who this horrifying phoenix was, so he opened the restriction and called the Imperial Thunder sect disciple who was on duty. Chapter 2548. After the disciple returned to the Imperial Thunder sect's encampment, Qian Mo said, "From what I've seen, it's not that our Imperial Thunder sect's disciple is ruthless. This is a battlefield, and any sword cultivator is an enemy, so we can't show mercy. Moreover, this disciple's family should be in the north of the country of Xi, so they're quite familiar with the sword cultivators of the country of Huan. His family also has enmity with sword cultivators, which is why they were so ruthless. How many families with Phoenix bloodline can there be in the Xiaoyu continent?" De Sun frowned slightly. After I found out about this, I also thought about it. The Qingyang Kai family of the country of Xi has Ice Phoenix bloodline, and now they have an extremely outstanding disciple under the Huanhua sect. The Huanyan Huang family of the country of Lian has Earth Phoenix bloodline, but they haven't had any outstanding disciples for thousands of years. The Feng family of the country of Meng's White Phoenix Mountain has Fire Phoenix bloodline, and seems to have a disciple under our Tai Ching sect, but this disciple isn't too outstanding. Which other families have such an outstanding disciple? Qian Mo thought for a moment and shook his head slightly. I don't know if any of these three families have disciples under our Imperial Thunder sect. However, now that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has changed, the bloodlines of many cultivation families have awakened. Perhaps there are other families that haven't noticed it before. And now that there are outstanding disciples, their bloodlines have reappeared. While they were talking, the cultivators of the 10 large sects had finished reading the 7 Extremes Ridges communication jade slip. Everyone had some doubts in their eyes, but they saw Lu Xinwu of the Splendid sect glance at Gao Wei of the Xuanyan school, and then at Wang Yi of the 7 Skills sect. The three of them exchanged glances, and Lu Xinwu asked again, "Fellow Taoist Qian, if our Xi country has a late gold core senior martial brother, we'll naturally be happy. If he took down the 7 Extremes Ridge, our 4 sects would have suffered less casualties. However, according to what I know, your sect's sect leader Qian Lazy doesn't seem to have reached the stage of lightning cultivation, right?" Gao Wei also smiled apologetically. "That's right, our Xi country actually had such a cultivator. I have never heard of it." It was no wonder they asked. The other cultivators of the Lian and Meng countries might not know, but the 3 sects of Xi country were very clear about the background of the Imperial Thunder sect. How could it be easy to cultivate a lightning cultivation? Qian Lazy, its sect, how could there be a late gold core realm cultivator? If there was such a cultivator, it would be a threat to the 3 sects of Xi country's 3 sects. Hearing this, Qian Mo's heart skipped a beat. Since Lu Xinwu and the other 2 could tell, how could he not know? The thunder escape technique had always had a strict requirement on the tempering of the fleshly body. However, body cultivators and Dao cultivators both needed to spend a lot of energy and time. All cultivators valued their cultivation base and magic power, so who would pay special attention to the fleshly body? Sects. And sect A, sect. QS not their T theirs body theirs, not theirs they SSS Dao. Sects body their sect, but A there. Sect their body Kudens had. Was. In this situation, although the sect's lightning escape technique, there were only a few who could master it. Even the sect master, Qian Lazy, could only master it. However, this was only for nascent soul realm cultivators and below. It was different for spirit severing stage cultivators. Cultivators who could step into the spirit severing stage had their bodies tempered, and were quite tough. They could easily cultivate the lightning escape technique. Most of the spirit severing stage cultivators of the Imperial Thunder sect could improve on the lightning escape technique. Qianmo's first thought was that it was impossible when he heard that there was a late Gold Core Realm senior brother who could use the Sex Imperial Lightning escape technique. His second thought was, if there is such a late Gold Core Realm senior brother who can use the Sex Imperial Lightning escape technique, then it would be easy for him to reach Nascent Soul Realm. Even Spirit Severing Stage wouldn't be a problem. How could She Country's 3 sects not value a cultivator who could easily reach Nascent Soul and Spirit Severing Stage? AI, it's not just the two of you. Qianmo's lips curled into a faint smile. Qianmo also doesn't know. My Imperial Lightning Sect's Heavenly Thunder Palace's Golden Core Realm disciples. There are so many of them. Although this old man isn't familiar with all of them, who wouldn't know? Not to mention that this old man hasn't seen his face before. This name. This old man doesn't even know. He calls himself Wu Ming. Wu Ming. How can he have a name? Wang Yi was somewhat displeased. He felt that Qianmo was patronizing him and coldly said. Qianmo retorted. My Thunder Palace's Myriad Thunder Valley also has a person called Wu Ming. If someone is called Wu Ming, then it's normal. Cough cough, Heng Cheng, who was on duty at the meeting hall today, lightly coughed twice and said, since fellow Qianmo really doesn't know about this senior brother, then this senior brother really passed by the 7 Extremes mountain range. Qianmo nodded. It should be so. But according to fellow Qian's words, his Imperial Lightning sect doesn't have such a person? Wang Yi sneered and said, the Imperial Lightning sect is very powerful now. They even have to hide it from the fellow Taoists in the meeting hall. Forget about the small terrifying phoenix. How can a late Golden Core Realm senior brother not have a name? This senior brother wouldn't have done something that can't be seen, right? At this point, Wang Yi suddenly came to a realization and shouted, that's right. Since senior brother Wu Ming was near Prison Dragon Ridge during the Battle of the 7 Extremes mountain range, why didn't he extend his hand? Fellow Taoist Li Chengxiu's self-detonation caused such a huge commotion. Didn't he see it? Why didn't he kill the swordsman who killed fellow Taoist Li Chengxiu and fellow Taoist Kuan Shui? Or perhaps, the Imperial Lightning Sect's cultivator's aura that fellow Taoist Qianmo discovered at Prison Dragon Ridge wasn't Kuan Shui, but this Wu Ming? Fellow Taoist Wang is slandering me. Qianmo's heart sank. He coldly said, pills can be eaten carelessly, but words can't be spoken carelessly. How can my Imperial Lightning Sect's Golden Core Realm senior brother use a flying sword? How can he have a reason to kill fellow Taoist Li Chengxiu? After his battle with fellow Taoist Li, can he still calmly kill the illusory sword grade 3 swordsman of 7 Extremes mountain range? Does fellow Taoist Wang feel that fellow Taoist Li Chengxiu's ambush at Prison Dragon Ridge was too rash? Does he want to erase fellow Taoist Li Chengxiu's painstaking efforts and contributions? Cough cough, Heng Cheng, who was on duty at the discussion hall, couldn't help but cough again. What Wang Yi said had a trace of truth, but it was truly unimaginable. Furthermore, it was obvious that he was trying to sow discord between the Imperial Lightning sect and Immortal Music sect. With one glance, he could tell that Wang Yi was somewhat jealous of the Imperial Lightning sect's late Golden Core Realm cultivator, who suddenly appeared. He couldn't help but stop him. Fellow Taoist Wang's thinking is still very meticulous. You dare to think. However, this is the discussion hall. Without any evidence, it's better not to speak carelessly. Isn't fellow Taoist Qian also speculating? What's wrong with my speculation? Wang Yi looked at everyone and pursed his lips into a smile. His mouth was still muttering, but his voice was also softer. Indeed, even a late Golden Core Realm disciple of the Imperial Lightning sect could only escape in the face of the Nascent Soul Realm spiritual talisman on them. It was impossible for them to force Li Chengxiu to self-destruct. The entire discussion hall was abuzz with discussions again. It was a little chaotic. Heng Cheng glanced at Wang Yi, Lu Xinwu and Gao Wei. He was slightly angry. Which cultivator didn't notice their actions of suppressing the Imperial Lightning sect? Even Heng Cheng had some sympathy for Qianmo. No wonder Qianmo is very concerned about the marriage with the Sky Patrol City. Isn't it because of this? While they were talking, the discussion hall was suffused with light again. It seemed that someone had entered. Heng Cheng waved his hand. The light condensed and 3 human figures appeared. Zongbao? Heng Qing glanced at them and was shocked. He hurriedly waved his sleeves and let the 3 people in. Disciple Li Zongbao greets the elders of the discussion hall. Li Zongbao calmly approached and bowed to everyone in the discussion hall. Disciple Xiao Mao greets the elders of the discussion hall. Xiao Mao did not dare to neglect and hurriedly bowed. The other person was a disciple of the Imperial Lightning Sect. When he saw this, he also bowed and said, Imperial Lightning Sect's Dui Jiankong greets the elders. Oh, isn't the Imperial Lightning Sect disciple under you Xiaohua? Heng Qing was stunned and asked curiously. Could it be that Xiaohua has fallen? He good I know. Li Zongbao said faintly. Junior brother Zhao's flying technique is a little fast. I sent him to deliver a letter to the cultivators of the other teams. Junior brother Dui met outside the discussion hall. He also had something to report to Martial Uncle Qian, so we came in together. Oh, I see. Heng Qing nodded and asked. Where did you go this time? What did you gain? Li Zongbao frowned and looked at Heng Qing. He said, so the elders did not receive the message. I came back from Flowing Ice Valley. Ah? You went to Flowing Ice Valley? How was the battle situation there? Heng Qing was shocked and stared straight at Li Zongbao. He had a bad premonition in his heart. Li Zongbao looked at everyone and said, the situation in Flowing Ice Valley is very complicated. This junior brother Dui came first, let him report first. See, Heng Qing's heart turned cold and his face turned ugly. He said to Dui Jiankong, if you have something to report, you can report it to Brother Qian first. Yes. Dui Jiankong smiled apologetically. Martial Uncle Qian, I was ordered to go to the encampment to search for information about the terrifying phoenix. But I have already asked the 8 Thunder Palace team leaders who stayed in the encampment. They all said that they did not find out the background of this terrifying phoenix. Ah, Qian Mo almost jumped up and asked, when did they know? Why didn't they report it to me? Dui Jiankong hesitated for a moment and explained. The senior brothers only knew about it a year ago. It seemed to be very popular among the sword cultivators. But since it was a Foundation establishment disciple, it was not a particularly powerful disciple. They asked the disciples of the aristocratic families and did not find anything, so they did not investigate it in detail. Moreover, the words of sword cultivators were rather erroneous. It might be some kind of trick, so they did not dare to take it seriously. So, they did not report it to Martial Uncle. Chapter 2549. Maybe after investigating for a long time and discovering that it wasn't a disciple of their own Thunder Palace, they didn't want the other Thunder Palaces to hold their heads high, so they naturally didn't spread the news. Wang Yi gloated. In the end, the Golden Core Masters of our Imperial Thunder Sect still don't know about the extremely terrifying phoenix that sword cultivators speak of. Ha! When everyone heard this, they all laughed. What Wang Yi said was probably the real reason why the Imperial Thunder Sect didn't find the terrifying phoenix. When Li Zongbao heard this, his expression slightly changed. Xiao Mao was even more curious. He didn't know why the masters of the discussion hall suddenly mentioned the terrifying phoenix. Dui Jiankong, you may leave. Qian Mo ordered the disciple to leave. He snorted and said arrogantly, no matter how powerful the terrifying phoenix is, it's still a disciple of my Imperial Thunder Sect. Moreover, it's only a Foundation establishment disciple of my Imperial Thunder Sect. Whether I know or not, it's fine. It's fine if I don't know. It's fine if it's on the battlefield of the Dao cultivators. If you have the ability, why don't your 7 skills sect send out a disciple to compare with my Imperial Thunder Sect's terrifying phoenix? Fellow Daoist Qian, Wang Yi sneered, not to mention my 7 skills sect's famous disciple. Even Xiao Mao from Xuanyan School wouldn't be any weaker than your Imperial Thunder Sect's terrifying phoenix, right? How is Xiao Mao powerful? Doesn't their team also have my Imperial Thunder Sect's Xiaohua? He wouldn't be any weaker than Xiao Mao, right? Qian Mo said without hesitation. Xuanyan School's Gao Wei was unhappy and said coldly, fellow Daoists, what's wrong with my Xuanyan School's Xiao Mao? His cultivation isn't as good as your disciples? Wang Yi smiled and said, fellow Daoist Gao, don't think too much. I was just giving an example. If your sect's disciple didn't have a high cultivation, how could I think of him? Humph, Gao Wei sneered and didn't say anything. Nanming School's Liang Mingfu didn't say anything. After all, this had nothing to do with their Nanming School. However, when he heard this, he suddenly said, Liang suddenly thought of something. Say this mysterious and terrifying phoenix. Could it be that Xiaohua? He hasn't fought with the Imperial Thunder Sect's troops, and he hasn't had much contact with the other Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples. At the same time, he's also a Foundation Establishment disciple. Li Zongbao was shocked in his heart. He didn't expect that when he just came back and didn't report it, someone would already associate Xiaohua with the terrifying phoenix. This was a situation that Xiaohua was extremely unwilling to see. However, Li Zongbao was also clear. After all, Xiaohua wasn't here. So what if someone saw through him? Moreover, although the name of the terrifying phoenix was resounding, it had nothing to do with killing Tu Hong, so Xiaohua was not in too much danger. The moment Liang Mingfu's words left his mouth, everyone's eyes lit up. Even Qian Mo seemed to be deep in thought. However, he quickly denied it. There is still something wrong. Xiaohua was a rogue cultivator, and not a cultivator aristocratic family. He didn't have a true bloodline in him. Moreover, other than going to the Chicken Crow Mountain with my Imperial Thunder Sect's first team, he was trapped in the Spring Gold Mountain Spirit Stone Mine. He didn't have any special contact with sword cultivators. In particular, he was buried in the Spring Gold Mountain Spirit Stone Mine for nearly 5 years. When everyone received the news last year, he was still in the Spring Gold Mountain. How could he have come out to kill swordsmen? Zongbao, does that Xiaohua have a phoenix dharma body? Hung Feng heard Li Zongbao mention Xiaohua in advance and vaguely knew that Xiaohua's cultivation was profound. At this time he was also suspicious. What fellow Qian said is funny. Wang Yi ridiculed again. If Xiaohua didn't have too much contact with sword cultivators, where did his battle achievements come from? It's said that he saved hundreds of Xuanyan School's disciples in the Gale Snowfield Spirit Stone Mine. And this Xiao Mao in front of us. If that's the case, I'm afraid these battle achievements are fake. Speaking of fake, Li Zongbao once again thought of Xiaohua's words. He looked up and sure enough, the faces of Hung Feng and the others were ugly. Gao Wei was angry. He stood up and said, Fellow Wang, what's wrong with you today? My Xuanyan school didn't provoke you, right? Could it be that the thing my junior Gao left in Li Zongbao's token was fake? Who knows? Seeing the situation, Wang Yi decided to shed all pretense of cordiality and didn't compromise. I'll let all the teachers know. Xiao Mao hastily stepped forward and bowed. Disciple Xuanyan School's Xiao Mao once again swears a blood oath. Disciple has followed Senior Li Zongbao and Senior Xiaohua for so long and has experienced dozens of battles. Disciple has never seen Senior Xiaohua reveal any Dharma body, let alone a phoenix Dharma body. When Hung Feng heard this, he frowned slightly. He looked at the silent Li Zongbao and didn't ask any more questions. Fellow Wang of Seven Skills Sect, did you hear clearly? What did my Xuanyan School's disciple say? He even swore a blood oath. Gao Wei said coldly. So what? Wang Yi still wanted to pester, but how could Li Zongbao let them speak? He stepped forward and said, Teachers, it doesn't matter who is the Terror Phoenix. Even if disciple isn't, disciple still wants to admit it. If Xiaohua is the Terror Phoenix, why didn't he reveal his Dharma body? Why didn't he ask for credit? It's useless to pester this matter too much. Martial Uncle Gao of Xuanyan School, please sit down. Disciple will now report the battle situation of Flowing Ice Valley. Gao Wei glanced at Wang Yi and sat down. At this moment, Wang Yi was also somewhat regretful. He was originally targeting the Imperial Thunder Sect. Why did he drag Xuanyan School into this? However, Li Zongbao's next words immediately swept away his regret. Golden Core Stage Teachers this time, our Utopia faction, Changbai Sect, and Cool Breeze Valley attacked Flowing Ice Valley. We were obstructed by the Void Heaven Sword Sect, Black Phoenix Sword Sect, and Gorilla Mountain. Under the joint efforts of the Golden Core Stage Teachers of the 3 sects, we killed Qin Mu Ming of the Void Heaven Sword Sect, LV Jing of the Black Phoenix Sword Sect, and Liang Qi of Gorilla Mountain. However, among the teachers of the three sects, only senior Li Feiyu of the Changbai sect died fighting with LV Jing of the Black Phoenix sword sect. After killing 3 illusory swordsmen, the other 2 teachers fell into Qin Jian's ambush. The 2 teachers, Martial Uncle Chu Hui and Martial Uncle Su Bo of Cool Breeze Valley, fought with Qin Jian. After Qin Jian was seriously injured, they died in Flowing Ice Valley. Ah? Heng Zhao's expression changed greatly. He finally understood the reason for his uneasiness just now. Chu Hui and he were like brothers. They cultivated from the qi refining stage to the golden core stage together. Their disciples were also harmonious. Chu Hui was not jealous of Li Zongbao, because Li Zongbao was more outstanding than his disciple. Instead, he often helped Li Zongbao. Now that he heard the news of Chu Hui's death, how could he not be heartbroken? It turns out that Qin Jian was in Flowing Ice Valley. Heng Zhao gritted his teeth and said, "It seems that fellow cultivator Li Qingxiu was not killed by Qin Jian. The murderer was someone else." "What? Li Qingxiu?" Li Zongbao was shocked. He hurriedly looked at the location of the Xianlu sect. Sure enough, the futon was empty. Damn it, Xiaohua didn't kill Li Qingxiu, did he? What is he going to do? Li Zongbao was secretly surprised. "Li Zongbao, explain everything clearly." De Sun said anxiously. The battle report from Flowing Ice Valley did not come. I'm afraid that it was also intercepted by the sword Xiao. Yes. Li Zongbao sorted out his thoughts and explained clearly what he, Xiaohua, and Xiao Mao did in Flowing Ice Valley. However, for Xiaohua's actions, he took some responsibility for himself and some for Xiao Mao. If he couldn't do it, for example, driving away the giant, he would push it to Chu Hui. In short, if others heard it, they would definitely not think that Xiaohua came to Flowing Ice Valley from another place. Xiaohua's cultivation did not exceed the middle stage of foundation establishment. After Li Zongbao finished speaking, Qin Jian's face showed a miserable expression. He clapped his hands and took out 3 storage bags. He respectfully handed them to Heng Ming and said, "Master, these are the corpses of Martial Uncle Li Feiyu, and Martial Uncle Su Bo disciple brought them back. In addition, there are a few storage bags. As long as the 3 of us saw the corpses, we put them in these storage bags." Sigh. Heng Ming took the storage bags with a solemn expression. He looked at Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao, who took out the other storage bags inside. This old man was uneasy early in the morning. "I didn't expect that Chu Hui and the others would fall into Qin Jian's hands. You all took the risk to retrieve their corpses. Not only did you make a great contribution, but your filial piety is also commendable." When Heng Ming sighed, the faces of the gold core cultivators were filled with astonishment. That's right. Although Qin Jian did not appear in Prisoner Dragon Ridge, he did appear in Flowing Ice Valley. He actually set up an ambush to kill tens of thousands of cultivators. He wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with Tu Hong. It was the spirit-binding juice. Even these gold core cultivators were afraid when they heard about it. They did not have the confidence to detoxify the poison easily. Even if they went to Flowing Ice Valley, they would most likely end up like Su Bo and the others. Fellow Taoist Heng Ming, Li Zongbao, Xiao Mao, and Xiaohua were able to turn the tide and reverse the declining situation of the Flowing Ice Valley battlefield in one go. Moreover, they were able to remain calm in the face of danger when tens of thousands of cultivators were poisoned, and came up with a miraculous method to rescue tens of thousands of disciples from the spirit stone mines of Flowing Ice Valley. Xiong Huasong sighed and said, "Fellow cultivator, today is your turn in the conference hall. The 3 of them must be heavily rewarded." "That's right, it should be so." Gao Wei and Qian Mo also nodded. "This old man feels that it's not right." Wang Yi hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Although these are great contributions, it's a pity that they were all narrated by Li Zongbao himself, and were not confirmed by the other disciples. Just based on one side of the story, you want to reward them. I'm afraid that it won't convince the others?" At this point, he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, "That's right, this old man still has a question. I hope that Martial Nephew Zongbao can answer it." "Martial Uncle Wang, please speak." Li Zongbao was confident and seemed to know what Wang Yi wanted to ask. Changbai Sect's Li Feiyu is still okay. However, Precious Sex Xiehui and Cool Breeze Valley's Su Bo were killed by Qin Jian. How did you all get their corpses? Qin Jian was actually so benevolent to let you all take the corpses away? Wang Yi sneered and asked. Chapter 2550. Didn't you hear what Zongbao said? Qin Jian was also seriously injured. I'm afraid he went back to treat his injuries in a hurry. Did he not care about the corpses of the two of you? Gao Wei said coldly before Li Zongbao could speak. Why do I feel that I don't believe him? Wang Yi tilted his head and asked, what about the rest of you? Haha, Junior Zongbao is right. Sooner or later, there will be a battle report from Flowing Ice Valley. De Sun smiled. Junior Zongbao is the #1 cultivator below the Golden Core stage in Dao sect. I believe his words. Li Zongbao said coldly. I don't need Junior Uncle Wang to believe me because I, Xiao Hua, and Xiao Mao have already killed Qin Jian. Hiss. The entire arena was filled with gasps of astonishment, and then everyone's eyes flashed with disbelief. Qin Jian was able to kill 2 gold core stage cultivators, and although it was because of the spirit binding juice, he had to be at the 3rd grade of the illusory sword realm. Even if Qin Jian was heavily injured, he was definitely not someone that Li Zongbao, Xiao Hua, and Xiao Mao could deal with. Furthermore, Qin Jian did not have any illusory sword disciples. Did he not have any unsheathed sword disciples? Did Qin Jian not know how to escape? Zongbao, do you have any evidence? Unlike the others who did not believe him, Heng Heng knew that his disciple would not claim credit for nothing. He suppressed his excitement and asked softly. Of course I do. As Li Zongbao spoke, he took out another storage bag and handed it to Heng Ming. This is Qin Jian's corpse. However, he self-destructed before he died, so his corpse was incomplete. Fortunately, Xiao Hua and Xiao Mao found his keepsake and some other bits and pieces. They can prove that what I said is true. Quick, let this old man have a look. Heng Heng impatiently waved his hand, and the storage pouch flew into his hand. Killing Qin Jian was a mission that had a bounty on it for many years. He had always heard of people and cultivators who were killed by Qin Jian. However, he had never heard of Qin Jian being killed by a single cultivator. Furthermore, Qin Jian was killed by 3 people led by his own disciple. How could Heng Heng not lose his composure? After Heng Heng took out Qin Jian's bloody head and some pieces of his body, and carefully identified them, as well as the sword token that could prove Qin Jian's identity, Heng Heng didn't look at anything else. His white eyebrows slightly trembled, and his long eyebrows seemed to be fluttering. Yes, this is Qin Jian's sword token, the token of the Void Heaven Sword School. It's Qin Jian's. Fellow Taoists, please take a look. With a flip of his hand, Heng Ming passed the storage pouch to Black Sky Sex Xiong Huasong beside him. His eyes were filled with joy and even a hint of showing off. It was as if their own child had achieved something, and now that it was placed in front of them, they were admiring it. Xiong Huasong and the others naturally didn't dare to believe it too much. After all, this matter was too inconceivable. Moreover, when Li Zongbao first received the special order from the conference hall, although the group of Jindan stage cultivators didn't have the intention to laugh at him, they wanted to train Li Zongbao and even the younger generation. Who would have thought that Li Zongbao, Xiao Hua, and Xiao Mao actually did it? Heng Ming looked lovingly at Li Zongbao, revealing an indescribable feeling. Who was Qin Jian? Even Heng Ming himself didn't dare to say that he was a match for him. But in front of him, this child who was still cultivating qi in front of him dozens of years ago had already surpassed him and killed Qin Jian. Zongbao has grown up. Sigh, this old man has also grown old. Heng Ming couldn't help but sigh. Then he felt a sense of sadness. Junior brother Chu Hui, why are people's encounters so different? Some people rise to the top. Some people have a bumpy life. Some people can step on the shoulders of others to become the center of attention. But some people can only be the stairs of others, unable to shine. Master. Li Zongbao looked at Heng Ting's eyes and naturally knew what his master was thinking. His heart ached as he said in a low voice. Actually, this is all thanks to Martial Uncle Chu Hui and the others. We were just lucky. Your Uncle Chu Hui led thousands of disciples of the Utopia faction. There were also tens of thousands of disciples of the Changbai sect and the Cool Breeze Valley, who participated in the Battle of the Flowing Ice Valley. Which of their disciples were so lucky? When Heng Yi heard Li Zongbao's humility, he was somewhat disapproving. Your martial uncle Chop Hui, martial uncle Li Feiyu, and martial uncle Su Bo have also contributed. My discussion hall will definitely not let them die in peace. But, at this point, Heng Ji dragged out his words. The three of you have contributed greatly. This bounty for killing Qin Jian was the first bounty issued by the discussion hall. After that, there have been other bounties of various sizes. However, none of them were too difficult. Many cultivators have completed them. Only this one. This bounty has never been settled. In the past few years, countless cultivators have died in Qin Jian's hands because of this bounty. The masters in the meeting hall also think that we should wait until the nascent soul masters come to Sky Patrol City before the bounty can be cancelled. We even said just now that for the sake of the meeting hall's reputation, we should personally kill Qin Jian. These words were actually not suitable for Li Zongbao, but who asked Li Zongbao to be Heng Ming's disciple? Who else could they talk to but him? Moreover, as time passed, the number of disciples who died in Qin Jian's hands increased, and the bounty increased by a lot. Even now, even this old man is a little jealous. Yes, I understand. Li Zongbao looked at the Golden Core Masters who were checking their storage bags and said, Actually, the moment I saw Qin Jian and saw him fighting with the Uncle Masters, I finally understood that I was truly ignorant of my own abilities when I clamored to kill Qin Jian back then. It was truly too hee-hee, it's alright. Heng Ming did not wait for Li Zongbao to finish and waved his hand with a smile. Who hasn't been young before? Who hasn't had lofty aspirations? I was afraid that if you really met Qin Jian, you would be too arrogant to know your place and not know how to escape. However, I thought about it later. Who is Qin Jian? How could you find him so easily? Yes, I understand the intentions of Master and the other masters. Li Zongbao lowered his head and said, This is Xiao Mao from Xuanyan? Heng Ming looked at Xiao Mao with a smile and asked. Yes. Li Zongbao hurriedly replied and Xiao Mao hurriedly bowed again. Disciple Xiao Mao greets Uncle Heng Ming. Yes, you are not bad yourself. Heng Ming smiled. I have seen Xiao Hua and knew that he would achieve great things with Zongbao. I did not think highly of you back then, but I did not expect that I was still blind. The three of you were able to kill Qin Jian together, and your names will definitely spread throughout the Dawnrain continent. It is all thanks to senior brother Zongbao's support. Xiao Mao said obediently. If not for his command, senior brother Xiao Hua, and I would not have been able to obtain such great merit. Senior brother Zongbao deserves the most credit this time. Yes. Heng Ming smiled and nodded. He looked at Gao Wei from Xuanyan, and Gao Wei also smiled and nodded at him. Gao Wei had just seen Qin Jian's remains and the items in the storage bag, and his face was filled with unconcealable joy. Xiao Mao, this unknown disciple, had really made him proud. Although Xiao Mao did not have the greatest merit in killing Qin Jian, he was only in the middle stage of foundation establishment. How could he be compared to Li Zongbao? Among the three of them, the other disciple of Imperial Thunder Sect, Xiao Hua, was only in the early stage of foundation establishment. No matter what, Xiao Mao still had the second most credit. Furthermore, even if Xiao Mao and Li Zongbao were not as close as Xiao Hua and Li Zongbao, it was still amazing that Xiao Mao could only obtain the third most credit. Among the hundreds of thousands of Dao sect disciples, who could compare to the three of them? Even if he was ranked third, it was still eye-catching. Looking at Qian Mo, other than excitement, there was only astonishment in his eyes. He had not carefully examined Qin Jian's remains, but many cultivators had already examined it, and no one had raised any objections. It must be true. Furthermore, who would dare to fake Qin Jian's remains? Qian Mo's excitement was needless to say, but his astonishment was not something that Heng Ming and Gao Wei could understand. After all, in his impression, Xiao Hua's credit was really too much not to mention the Imperial Thunder Sect's first meritorious deed that was done by Xiao Hua in the first group of Imperial Thunder Sect. Following that, the first group of Imperial Thunder Sect went to Golden Spring Mountain. Before they even reached Golden Spring Mountain, They had already saved the disciples of the three sects and were recorded as meritorious deeds by Tu Hong. There was no need to talk about Golden Spring Mountain. Tens of thousands of disciples were buried there, and the 10 that were brought back by Tu Hong were also heavily injured. However, the 7 people of Imperial Thunder Sect's first group were completely unharmed, and their cultivations even increased. Among them was Xiaohua. After the first group of Imperial Thunder Sect left, Xiaohua was actually chosen by Li Zongbao and went to the Gale Snow Plains. Following Li Zongbao, he saved hundreds of cultivators. Of course, these cultivators were not Dao sect disciples, and the discussion hall did not ask these cultivators to verify. However, since Li Zongbao said so, this meritorious deed was also recorded. The meritorious deed of the Gale Snow Plains had not cooled down, and Xiaohua had actually charged into the Spirit Stone mine. Regardless of whether Qin Jian went easy on him or Xiaohua's luck was good, those hundreds of people from Xuanyan School were saved by Xiaohua. This meritorious deed was also recorded. Not to mention the Spirit Stone mine, there was also the corpse of the Imperial Thunder Sect's Golden Core cultivator from Yinyang Twin Springs Mountain, and the news he brought back. This was another meritorious deed. There was no need to talk about these. Moreover, this time the 3 of them actually saved tens of thousands of people. Listening to Li Zongbao's explanation, this must be true. Xiaohua's meritorious deed was definitely worth 30%. Furthermore, there was also the unverified corpse of Qin Jian. This meritorious deed was even greater. It seems like Xiaohua's meritorious deed is much more than Li Zongbao's. While Qianemo pondered, he was also a little jealous. This fellow's luck, isn't it a little too good? Suddenly, an extremely daring thought appeared in his mind. Even he felt that it was inconceivable. Damn it, this Xiaohua wouldn't be like what some people had guessed, a terrifying phoenix? Moreover, if he has the cultivation of senior brother Wu Ming, it is also extremely possible for him to have such meritorious deeds. Chapter 2551. However, Qianemo couldn't help but laugh. Damn it, how is that possible? Xiaohua was with Li Zongbao at Flowing Ice Valley, while senior brother Wu Ming was at 7 Extremes Ridge. However, Qianemo was shocked again. How is that possible? If Xiaohua knew how to control the thunder, he could have rushed to Flowing Ice Valley from 7 Extremes Ridge. But Li Zongbao said that the 3 of them were together just as Qianemo realized the truth of the matter. The storage bag containing Qin Jian's corpse was handed to him. Haha, I'm overthinking. Qianemo smiled bitterly. Xiaohua just joined the Thunder Sect not long ago. How could he reach the later stage of the Golden Core Realm? If he was at the later stage of the Golden Core Realm, he would have been overjoyed. Qianemo opened the storage bag and checked it carefully. As one of the 3 sects that made such a contribution, he couldn't let anyone criticize him. He had to be careful. Li Zongbao looked at the Golden Core Realm Masters and laughed in his heart. This was the real thing. How could it be fake? However, he had to be serious about the questions that followed. Li Zongbao glanced at Xiao Mao. After the 2 of them separated from Xiaohua, they discussed for a long time before coming to the meeting hall. Sure enough, after an hour, all the Golden Core Realm Masters had checked Qin Jian's corpse. Heng Zhao took the storage bag inside. Zongbao and the other 2 have made such a great contribution, but they did it when Chu Hui Li Feiyu and Su Bo severely injured Qin Jian. To be honest, it's a little unfair. I'm Zongbao's master and Chu Hui's senior brother, so I won't say anything. My friends, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Yes. Changbai Sect's Li Jijie immediately said. Jie Hui Li Feiyu and Su Bo died in order to kill Qin Jian. They also saved tens of thousands of disciples from Flowing Ice Valley's Spirit Stone mine. Their contributions, we cannot forget. Although we can't forget about it, the ones who killed Qin Jian were Li Zongbao, Xiao Mao and Xiaohua. Their contributions are greater. Even Heng had given a portion of the credit for killing Qin Jian to Li Feiyu, who had not even seen Qin Jian. How could he not be tactful enough to make the first move? Yes, this old man also agrees. Cool Breeze Valley's Zhu Junwei nodded and said, when I offered the reward in the meeting hall, I made it clear that as long as you kill Qin Jian, no matter what method you used, no matter which sect you are from. And even if you are not a disciple who participated in the battle, you will still be rewarded. Since it was my son who took part in the battle that brought Sword Qin's corpse back, what else is there to say? This merit naturally belongs to the three of you. I feel that although the merit of killing Qin Jian is not small, the benevolence of the three of them is even better. Not only did they avenge the cultivators who were killed by Qin Jian, they also brought back the corpses of the 3 Golden Core Stage seniors and countless Foundation Establishment Stage seniors and juniors. This is the most commendable deed. Qian Mo voiced his opinion. Tai Ching Sec's De Sun's eyes flashed as he said thoughtfully, "The disciples from Shi country and Lian country teamed up to kill Qin Jian. This is indeed a great story. As a cultivator from Ming country, this old man is somewhat jealous. If Xiao Hua was a disciple of my Tai Ching sect, he would have been killed by the 3 countries' cultivators. This would be an even better story." Seeing that the few Golden Core Stage cultivators had made the final decision, 7 Skills Sec's Wang Yi was not happy. He hurriedly said, "After listening to everyone's words, it seems like you all have already determined that the 3 of you killed Qin Jian. However, this old man is still a little curious. Qin Jian was a 3rd-grade illusory swordsman. How could Su Bo and Xie Hui injure him so severely? That year in the Spirit Stone Mine in the Gale Snowfield, Xuanyan School's dozens of early Golden Core Stage disciples were not able to harm Qin Jian at all. Furthermore, even if Qin Jian was heavily injured, the 3 of you, it seems like you couldn't have killed him so easily. Why aren't the 3 of you injured? That Xiao Hua from the Imperial Thunder Sect could still fly out to send a message? Of course, it's not that I don't admit that Qin Jian was killed by the 3 of you. I'm just curious. How did you guys do it?" Wang Yi obviously saw that Qian Mo, Heng Heng and Gao Wei's faces were not friendly. Even Li Jijie and Zhu Junwei's faces were pulled long. Therefore, he added this last sentence. However, this sentence was obviously superfluous. Heng Heng looked at Wang Yi coldly and said to Li Zongbao, "Zongbao, tell us what happened. You can satisfy your senior Uncle Wang's curiosity." Yes, this old man is not the only one curious. Even when the meeting hall announces the battle achievements of the 3 of you, you still have to explain. Otherwise, who would know if Qin Jian was real or not? Wang Yi smiled and said, "Also Sky Patrol City. Qin Jian assassinated Tu Hong. In this reward, Sky Patrol City has added quite a bit of weight. If Shui Yuzhenren asks about it, wouldn't it be hard to explain it to the meeting hall?" "Haha, Senior Uncle Wang, don't be anxious. I've already prepared to explain it to all the seniors." Li Zongbao gave a rare smile and told Xiao Mao everything that he had discussed with him beforehand. Xiao Mao also added in from time to time, describing the heroic scene with exceptional clarity. Qin Jian actually had 4 flying swords? Not only Wang Yi, but the entire meeting hall was shocked. It wasn't that Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao were eloquent, but that the 2 of them were talking about the original version of how Xiao Hua killed Qin Jian. However, Xiao Hua was replaced by Li Zongbao, Xiao Mao and Xiao Hua. Yes, when Qin Jian fought with senior Uncle Su Bo and the rest, he already lost 2 of his flying swords. Li Zongbao explained calmly. When he was surrounded by the 3 of us, he actually took out 2 more swords. This was really out of my expectations. If it wasn't for the fact that we had already surrounded Qin Jian, and that the sword light of the 2 flying swords dimmed, I would definitely have brought the 2 junior brothers Xiao and escaped. You said that when Qin Jian was fighting with Xie Hui and Su Bo, the sword light dimmed? De Sun frowned and asked, "Could it be that he was already injured?" "Yes, it should be so." Li Zongbao glanced at Wang Yi and said, "Didn't Senior Uncle Wang have the same question just now? But, when he was surrounded by the 3 of you, Qin Jian, no matter what, he should have some means to protect himself, right? It's impossible that he couldn't break through the joint attack of the 3 of you, who were in the Foundation Establishment stage?" Wang Yi still didn't believe it. "I've already explained it clearly. That Qin Jian was insatiably greedy and wanted to save his face. He didn't want to escape from the 3 of us. Didn't he use a very strange flying sword? That seemed to be his unique skill. It was as if the flying sword had pierced through our heads. Fortunately, junior brother Xiaohua obtained a strange shield from the sword cultivator. That shield blocked the flying sword and shattered together with the flying sword. And at the same time that Xiaohua fell, Qingjian also fell. Just when Qingjian was about to transform into a flying sword, senior brother Zongbao continuously activated the immortal piercing whip. He beat Qingjian until he couldn't transform into a sword. Xiao Mao added. No, I'm asking. Wang Yi waved his hand and said. What method did the three of you use to surround Qingjian? Was it a magic array? Otherwise, I would only be able to escape from your encirclement easily, let alone Qingjian. Hee, I've indeed obtained a secret technique. It's precisely through the joint attack of the three of us, using a method similar to a magic array to trap a cultivator. It can also transfer the magic power of two people to the other person. Although Martial Uncle Wang is a middle-stage Golden Core master, I'm confident that when you're heavily injured, we can surround you. Li Zongbao's skin and flesh moved, as if he was sneering. If you don't believe me, we can try when Xiaohua sends a message back. The group of Golden Core cultivators all laughed softly. That's right, if they surround Wang Yi when he's heavily injured, how can Wang Yi verify it? And they still have to wait for Xiaohua to return. Who knows when Xiaohua will return? Alright. Zongbao, your martial uncle Wang Yi, is also asking on behalf of the cultivators of the 3 countries of the Xiaoyu continent. His inspection of the details is also for your own good. Hung Feng held back his laughter and scolded Li Zongbao. Your contribution is indeed great. If you don't ask clearly about the details, how can we be at ease and give you the rewards? Yes, I understand. I feel that it's a fact that I killed Qingjian. I'm a little conflicted with Martial Uncle Wang's questioning. I seek Martial Uncle Wang's forgiveness. Li Zongbao lowered his head and said, also, if Martial Uncles have any other questions, I'll answer all of them. When the other Golden Core cultivators heard this, they all smiled and began to ask questions one by one. Naturally, these Golden Core cultivators were also very curious. They wanted to get to the bottom of many things, but they were definitely not making things difficult. They just wanted to know if what Li Zongbao said was true. They even asked many questions about the underground of Flowing Ice Valley. Li Zongbao's expression did not change as he answered them one by one. He did not slack at all. Everyone saw clearly that what Li Zongbao said just now really happened. That Qingjian was indeed killed by Li Zongbao, and the other two. Xiao Mao, who was listening by the side, could not help but sigh secretly. He was not sighing at Li Zongbao's ease of handling the situation, but at the group of Golden Core cultivators questioning of Li Zongbao. Instead of saying that this kind of questioning was to blame, it was better to say that it was to give Li Zongbao a chance to perform. They wanted him to explain the situation in more detail. Their questions had also become highlights for the show. If there was anything that was too difficult to explain, the group of people would definitely not ask. Especially since Qingjian was heavily injured. Why didn't the disciples who drew their swords come to protect him? Why did they let the 3 of them surround Qingjian and attack him? This was completely different from the questioning of Xiaohua when he returned from the Yinyang Twin Springs Mountain. At that time, Xiao Mao was also standing in the meeting hall with Li Zongbao and Xiaohua. The only difference was that the one facing the group of Golden Core cultivators was Xiaohua, a Foundation establishment disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Xiao Mao remembered that Xiaohua was forced into a corner by Li Qingshu that day. He was practically unable to deal with it, and directly threw the question to Li Zongbao and himself. If not for the fact that Xiaohua's storage bag contained the extremely tragic corpses of the male and female disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect, Xiaohua would have been interrogated by Li Qingshu. Chapter 2552. Luckily, I have a powerful sect. Xiao Mao looked at Gao Wei. Gao Wei seemed to have sensed something and nodded at him. As for Qian Mo, who had previously flaunted himself, he also cooperated with Xiaohua. A few times he asked about Xiaohua's outstanding points. Li Zongbao was also not stingy with his praise. This is ridiculous. Xiao Mao shook his head. All of this was done by Brother Xiao alone. Oh right, I suddenly thought of something. Wang Yi suddenly realized, since Qin Jian is heavily injured, why didn't those disciples come to protect him? Why did they let the three of you surround Qin Jian and attack him? If 10 or 8 grade 6 swordsmen came, the three of you wouldn't be a match for them, right? Instantly, the discussion hall fell into silence. Hee, look at what Uncle Wang said. Li Zongbao laughed. I am not Qin Jian, nor am I a sword cultivator. How would I know why they didn't come? Uncle Wang should ask the sword cultivators. Ha ha ha, Gao Wei laughed and clapped his hands. When I capture Qin Jian's disciples, I will interrogate them and find out where they went that day. If they give this great merit to my Xuanyan school's disciples, I might even give them 2 top-grade spirit stones. Ha ha ha, everyone laughed heartily. Wang Ye's face turned ugly. At this moment Li Zongbao said seriously, I was joking with Uncle Wang just now. The truth is what the disciple said. We all escaped from the Spirit Stone Mine in Flowing Ice Valley. Our numbers far exceeded Qin Jian's estimation. His disciples were chasing after the tens of thousands of Dao sect disciples. That was why he didn't protect us. Of course, they also thought that Qin Jian would never be injured. I even thought that with Qin Jian's competitiveness, his disciples didn't even know that he was injured. Brilliant. Xiao Mao almost gave him a thumbs up. This explanation was flawless. Furthermore, it highlighted the merits of the three of them in the karst cave. Wang Yi was speechless when he heard this. It seemed that Li Zongbao and the other two were the ones who did it. Do any of you have any other questions? Hung Ju said with a smile. If you don't, I'll report this to Daoist He Ping. We have already confirmed it. Gao Wei glanced at Xiao Mao, then looked at the crowd and laughed. Qin Jian was indeed killed by Li Zongbao, Xiao Mao and Xiao Hua. This matter can be reported to the various teachers. Yes, this old man hasn't contacted sect leader for a long time. This is great news. Qian Mo also laughed. Congratulations, fellow cultivators. De Sun seized the opportunity and said with a smile, the #1 bounty in the conference hall can finally be closed. Congratulations to you, congratulations to you. Hung Zhao and the others replied, rewards are secondary. The most important thing is to let sword cultivators know, and more importantly, let the cultivators of our Dao sect know that 3 foundation establishment disciples of our Dao sect were able to kill a 3rd-grade illusory swordsman. Swordsmen are nothing in front of us cultivators. That's right, this award should be given out as soon as possible. Before we launch a large-scale attack on the swordsmen, we must let all the cultivators know about it. Several Golden Core cultivators said in unison. Hungju nodded. This old man also thinks the same. Since we have Qin Jian's head, this merit belongs to Zongbao and the others. It is not appropriate for us to ask about the details. What we want is the result of killing Qin Jian, not the process. Indeed. De Sun spoke again. If it were any other time, the conference hall would have to carry out such a big move like killing Qin Jian. We would even have to look for the battle report from Flowing Ice Valley. However, the battle report from Flowing Ice Valley has not arrived yet. Our conference hall cannot wait any longer. This old man agrees to give out the award today. Alright, its eyes turn to be on duty today. I will take advantage of this and report this good news to the sect first. Hung Zhao said with a smile. He stood up and took out his token. The other Golden Core cultivators also hurriedly stood up and respectfully lined up behind Hung Zhao. Li Zongbao and Xiao Mao stood beside Hung Zhao. A light flashed in the conference hall. An old man with white hair and a youthful face wearing a feathered robe appeared in mid-air. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand and had a kind smile on his face. Greetings, Shinran He Ping. The group of Golden Core cultivators hurriedly bowed and greeted him. Please rise. Shinran He Ping said with a smile. I haven't heard any news from Sky Patrol City for a long time. How's the situation now? I know that the sect leader doesn't like to fight. If there's nothing special, I wouldn't dare to trouble the sect leader. Hung Zhao hurriedly bowed and said, it's my turn to be on duty today. It's also a critical moment, so I had no choice but to disturb the sect leader. Hung Zhao, you've always been experienced and prudent. You also have some strategies. I'm very relieved to leave the Utopia faction's disciples to you. Jinren He Ping praised Hung Zhao first. Heng Zhao looked delighted. After thanking him, he told him about the current situation of the battle. Jinren He-ping listened and frowned slightly. He was puzzled and said, "It hasn't been 10 years, right? Your attacks are very fierce." "Yes, sect leader," Heng Zhao hurriedly said. "The sword cultivator's attacks are also very fierce. They seem to be cutting off all means of retreat. Moreover, this time, the conference hall has been planning for a long time. Us Golden Core cultivators are also going to compete with their illusory swordsmen. I don't understand these things about attacking cities and seizing territories," Jinren He-ping said frankly. "What do you need me to do? Just tell me." "No, we haven't done anything yet. There's no need for the sect leader to do anything," Heng Zhao hurriedly said. "Today I have good news for the sect leader." "Oh, what good news?" Jinren He-ping asked curiously. "Sect leader, do you still remember the number 1 bounty order in the conference hall that I reported to you a few years ago?" Heng Zhao asked tentatively, but there was still some anxiety in his eyes. He was afraid that Jinren He-ping would forget about it. "Oh, I remember." Jinren He-ping laughed and said, "That's the number 1 bounty order in our Taoism sect. It seems to be a bounty for an illusory swordsman." "Yes, it's the illusory sword level 3 swordsman called Qin Jian," Heng Zhao hurriedly added, feeling relieved. "Illusory sword level 3. Jinren He-ping frowned again. "This kind of swordsman? I'm afraid it's not easy to kill him. This bounty order. Oh, could it be that a disciple of our Utopia faction killed Qin Jian? Good." Heng Zhao's face was full of smiles. Li Zongbao stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, sect leader." "Oh, Zongbao? It's you who killed Qin Jian?" Apparently, Jinren He-ping knew Li Zongbao, so he smiled brightly. Li Zongbao said respectfully, "My cultivation is not enough to kill Qin Jian. However, several Golden Core cultivators injured Qin Jian. Together with 2 junior brothers from the Imperial Thunder Sect and the Xuanyan School, I killed Qin Jian, who was seriously injured." "Ha ha ha, not bad." Jinren He-ping laughed. "Since you killed him, it's your credit. Zongbao, you've really brought honor to our Utopia faction. Tell me, how do you want me to reward you?" "I don't dare," Li Zongbao said hurriedly with a smile. "Master notified the sect leader because he wanted to make him happy. Master and I have no intention of rewarding you. Ha ha ha, in a war, those who have done well will be rewarded and those who have done wrong will be punished. I'm not senile. How could I not know that? Moreover, if you want to finish the war in one stroke, your momentum is the most important thing. Although I don't know how to command troops, I can still encourage the disciples of our Utopia faction." Jinren He-ping stroked his beard with his hand and said happily, "As long as I can promise you, I will promise you." Heng Zhao was overjoyed. Isn't this how his little abacus always works? Hearing Jinren He-ping's words, Heng Zhao squinted his eyes. He knew Li Zongbao's big opportunity had arrived. However, Heng Zhao was still so respectful. He lowered his head, as if he had not heard Jinren He-ping's words. This Li Zongbao was surprised. It seemed that this was not something he had expected. However, Jinren He-ping's words were also very clear. Whatever he asked for, he would agree. For a moment, Li Zongbao was full of thoughts. He did not know what to ask for. The discussion hall was completely silent. Many of the Golden Core elders were envious of Li Zongbao. This was the approval of a sect leader. If not for the impending battle, even if it was the great merit of killing Qin Jian, it would not have been exchanged for such a sentence. Li Zongbao's hesitation was reasonable. What about a cultivation method? Or a magic weapon? Or perhaps it was a highly sought-after position in the Utopia faction. The Golden Core stage cultivators were all thinking about Li Zongbao. However, at this moment, Li Zongbao bowed calmly and said, "Thank you, sect leader. After thinking about it, I think I'd better ask for a special pardon." What? Even Heng Zhao, who had lowered his head in silence, was shocked, let alone the other Golden Core stage cultivators. Heng Zhao had already put himself in Li Zongbao's shoes and thought of a few options. No matter which option, Li Zongbao would be able to take a few more steps on the road to the nascent soul stage. and have a greater chance of conceiving a baby. However, he never thought that Li Zongbao would ask for a special pardon. That thing was completely useless for cultivation. Heng Zhao could not help but look sideways at Li Zongbao. He could not speak, but his eyes were full of doubt and blame. A special pardon? Immortal He Ping frowned again. Zongbao, what can you hide from me? What do you want that for? Yes, a special pardon from the sect leader was something that could only be used when a disciple had committed a grave mistake and was about to be killed or his cultivation would be abolished. How could Immortal He Ping not find it strange that Li Zongbao wanted it for no reason? Even some cultivators who were not on good terms with the Utopia faction were gloating over Su Kei's misfortune. Li Zongbao, on the other hand, was extremely calm. He said calmly, I've been practicing the leeching treasure mirror, and I have the holy whip, the magic treasure of the Utopia faction. My master has taught me many skills, and I don't lack any elixirs. I really don't know what to ask for. If I ask for it in the future, it won't be able to boost the morale of the Utopia faction disciples. Therefore, I chose the special pardon. I took Qin Jian's life in exchange for a chance to correct my grave mistake. Isn't it more useful than any magic weapon or cultivation method? Chapter 2553. Good. Immortal He Ping nodded almost without hesitation. In that case, I approve the pardon order. Now send a disciple to send the pardon order to the Sky Sentry City. After that, Immortal He Ping flicked his sleeves, and the whole image gradually began to blur, and then disappeared. During the whole process, Immortal He Ping's face was as usual, and there was no change when he said good. No one knew if he was happy or angry. When the image of Immortal He Ping disappeared, Heng Ju raised his eyebrows. When he was about to send a message, Gao Wei of the Xuanyan school said with a smile, since fellow Taoist Heng Ming from the Utopia faction has reported to the head, I have to let the head know. Otherwise I will be negligent. Well, now the crowd did not have to disperse. They still stood in the distance, but Heng Ju moved back, and Gao Wei stood in front of Heng Ju. Gao Wei made a gesture and threw the token into the air, but there was a flash of brilliance in the air. After a while, the figure of Fairy Yingzhua did not appear. Gao Wei was a little surprised. He knew that this image transmission method was directly connected to Fairy Yingzhua's magic treasure. As long as he activated his Dharma power, Fairy Yingzhua must have some intuition. In the past 10 times, Fairy Yingzhua appeared immediately after he used it. Could it be that the head has other things to do? While thinking, Gao Wei's face was full of smiles. When he was about to speak, he saw the brilliance suddenly stagnate, and with a slight tremor, the image of Fairy Yingzhua flashed in the air. However, it was obvious that Fairy Yingzhua's face was full of displeasure, and a faint green light flashed in her eyes. Junior and others greet Fairy Yingzhua. All the cultivators bowed and saluted, so they could not see clearly. What's the matter? Fairy Yingzhua glanced at them, and said coldly, Disciple Gao Wei is now reporting the situation of the battle in the Sky Sentry City to the head, and there is also a good news. Gao Wei's words were very similar to Heng Ju's, but Fairy Yingzhua's reaction was different from Immortal He Ping's. Fairy Yingzhua was a little impatient, and said lightly, Didn't you just report a few days ago? You have begun to test the sword cultivator's actual situation? Now there is a situation? Then you should launch a fierce attack based on this situation. They are just a few illusory swordsmen. Do you think you can't kill all of the hundreds of thousands of disciples? Gao Wei looked a little embarrassed. Obviously, the time of his report was definitely not a few days ago, but he did not dare to correct him. He lowered his head and said, Yes, but there's no buts. Fairy Yingzhua said coldly, I don't know how to deploy troops. All of you are intelligent people. You only need to work together to spread the name of my Dao sect. Even if you lose, we won't blame you. Yes. Seeing that Fairy Yingzhua was about to flick her sleeves, Gao Wei hurriedly said, Does sect head still remember the first bounty for this battle? I don't remember. Fairy Yingzhua replied bluntly. Gao Wei smiled apologetically. Of course the sect leader is busy. This is just a small matter, so it's fine if you don't remember. But today, I want to report to the sect leader that Xiao Mao, a disciple in the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage of the Xuanyan school, together with the disciples of the Utmost Happiness faction and the Imperial Thunder faction, killed the third-grade illusory swordsman, Qin Jian. Oh. A disciple in the foundation establishment stage of the Xuanyan school killed the illusory swordsman? Fairy Yingzhuo was stunned and seemed to be a little interested. Disciple Xiaomao greets the sect head. Xiaomao hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Oh, it's you? Fairy Yingzhuo seemed to have some impression of Xiaomao, and a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. Yes, it's disciple Xiaomao. Xiaomao knew that Fairy Yingzhuo knew him through the hunting seedlings plan, and hurriedly replied. Not bad. Fairy Yingzhuo rolled her eyes and nodded. You have made a great contribution to the Xuanyan school. In addition to the bounty on the bounty, after the battle, I will reward you. Thank you, sect head. Xiaomao expressed his gratitude again. Yes, sect head knows. Gao Wei hurriedly said. Killing Qin Jian was the first bounty issued by the conference hall. Xiaomao and the other two completed this seemingly impossible task, and have already received the bounty on the bounty. Also, Immortal He Ping of the Utmost Happiness faction has just rewarded Li Zongbao. Yes, I know. Fairy Yingzhuo said impatiently. Whatever He Ping rewarded, the Xuanyan school will do the same. Yes, I understand. Gao Wei was really helpless, and hurriedly said again. Martial nephew Li Zongbao has requested for a special pardon from the Utmost Happiness faction. Sect head, please issue the special pardon to reward Xiaomao's battle achievements. Oh, special pardon? Fairy Yingzhuo was slightly stunned, and then she flicked her sleeves and said indifferently, I know. Seeing Fairy Yingzhuo's figure disappear, Gao Wei's mood was like a bucket of cold water being poured on his head. It couldn't be helped. Most of the original infant stage masters were focused on cultivating, and they didn't care too much about the battle. After all, the battle of the Golden Core stage masters was just the prelude. Even if the Golden Core stage masters were defeated in this battle, there would still be a group of original infant stage masters with extraordinary strength behind them. These original infant stage masters were definitely not people that the sword cultivators could easily resist. Gao Wei smiled bitterly, and Xiaomao hurriedly bowed and said, Thank you, Uncle Gao. You're welcome. This is what you deserve. Gao Wei stepped back and looked at Qian Mo. Qian Mo was a little hesitant. After all, Xiaohua wasn't in the conference hall at this time. The effect of him asking for Qian Leizi's help was not as good as that of Daoist He Ping and Fairy Yingzhuo. Moreover, he didn't know whether Qian Leizi would be like Fairy Yingzhuo and give him a bucket of cold water. Fellow cultivator Qian, please. Gao Wei wouldn't let Qian Mo go, and he shouted loudly. Oi. Qian Mo had no choice but to take out the token in front of everyone's eyes. As he made a spell, Qian Leizi's red face appeared in midair. Greetings, Senior Qian Leizi. Everyone bowed again. You all get up. Qian Leizi had shown his face in the conference hall earlier. At this time he waved his hand and said, You all have worked hard since the battle started. Qian Mo heaved a sigh of relief, and everyone said in unison, Thank you for your concern, Senior. What's the matter now? Qian Leizi raised his head and looked at Qian Mo. I have a few important things to report. Qian Mo didn't dare to keep it a secret. He told Qian Leizi about the current situation of the battle and John Doe who could perform the thunder travel. However, before he told Qian Leizi about Qin Jian, Qian Leizi's body shook and he shouted, Qian Mo, are you sure? He's a disciple of the thunder-controlling sect at the late stage of Gold Core realm? I haven't confirmed it yet. Qian Mo smiled apologetically, but according to Qin Sheng, it can't be wrong. Others don't know my thunder escape skill. But how can the disciples of the Canlei Palace not know it? How is this possible? Qian Leizi widened his eyes, but his voice became lower and lower. Of course, he couldn't believe that there was a disciple at the late stage of Gold Core realm in the thunder-controlling sect who could surpass him in the thunder escape skill. Quickly find Qin Sheng and ask him to return to the Sky Thunder Peak. Qian Leizi raised his eyebrows and ordered, Qian Mo, tell them that once they find John Doe's trace, immediately. Speaking of this, Qian Leizi hesitated. After all, John Doe was a cultivator who could perform the thunder escape skill. Ordinary disciples of the Gold Core realm couldn't catch up with him. Okay, you just need to pay attention to him. If you can find his trace or which Thunder Palace he belongs to, it will be better. After this battle, we will all go to the Sky Thunder City. Qian Lazy sighed and wondered if John Doe was a disciple secretly taught by a distraction stage master. Seeing that Qian Lazy was absent-minded, Qian Mo bowed again and said, "Besides this, I also want to report to the sect leader that Xiao Hua, a disciple of the thunder-controlling sect, joined hands with the disciples of the Xuanyan school and the Utopia faction to kill Qin Jian, a swordsman at the thunder-controlling stage 3 of the illusory sword skill." Qin Jian? Isn't he the swordsman who assassinated Tu Hong? What? The disciples of our Taoism sect did what the elders of the Shui region couldn't do? Our disciples of the thunder-controlling sect also have a share? Oh, Xiaohua again. That disciple of the foundation establishment stage? Qian Lazy asked curiously with a hint of embarrassment and joy in his eyes. Where is Xiaohua? Qian Lazy naturally knew about Tu Hong. He was extremely dissatisfied with Shui Yu Daoist, so he didn't care if Shui Yu Daoist knew about Tu Hong and Yu Meng. Seeing that Shui Yu Daoist didn't manage to kill Qin Jian, and instead, a foundational disciple from his Imperial Lightning sect and 2 disciples from other sects completed the task, how could he not be happy? However, when he looked around and didn't find Xiaohua, he asked, "Sect leader, Xiaohua has another important task. He was sent to another place without returning to the city." Qian Mo replied hurriedly, "Good." Qian Lazy clapped his hands and said, "Xiaohua has made many outstanding contributions to the thunder-controlling sect in the Sky Thunder City. He should be rewarded handsomely." "Yes, I also think so. Therefore, I would like to ask the sect leader to reward Xiaohua to boost the morale of our disciples," Qian Mo said with a smile. "Well, what should I reward him with?" Qian Lazy was very happy and asked in an inquiring tone. Qian Mo knew what Qian Lazy meant. He said hurriedly with a smile, "Xiaohua was not in the conference hall. Therefore, Li Zongbao of the Utopia faction and Xiao Mao of the Xuanyan school have asked for rewards from Immortal He Ping and Fairy Yingzhua." "Oh, really?" Qian Lazy said with a smile. "Then our thunder-controlling sect can't be stingy. We can't be worse than them. Tell me, what precious rewards did the Utopia faction and the Xuanyan school give?" "Well, the sect leader knows that the Utopia faction and the Utopia faction have rewarded Xiaohua with a special pardon order." Qian Mo didn't dare to hide the truth, although he also thought the special pardon order was unreasonable. "A special pardon order?" Qian Lazy was stunned. He said casually, "Well, let's wait until Xiaohua returns to the Sky Thunder Peak. Anyway, this is a great contribution. I will remember it in my heart." "Senior Qian." Li Zongbao's heart skipped a beat. He said hurriedly with a bow, "If I may be so bold, I would like to ask you to do it today." "Oh, you are Li Zongbao of the Utopia faction?" Qian Lazy was a little unhappy. "I know I can't do that." Li Zongbao's heart was trembling. He still didn't dare to straighten his back. However, he still said in a low voice, "I think this matter should not be delayed." Chapter 2554. Following which, Li Zongbao repeated the reason from before. Therefore, this junior begs senior to reward Xiaohua and greatly increase the morale of our Dao sect disciples. Mwisi. After listening to Li Zongbao's analysis of the battle situation and the reason for the additional reward, he praised Li Zongbao in his heart. He glanced at Li Zongbao and said with a smile, "You have a clear understanding of the battle situation. This additional reward is nothing. For disciples like you who killed Qin Jian and cleaned up the filth in Sky Patrol City, the special pardon order is really dispensable. How about this? This old man will give the special pardon order to Xiaohua like your sect. In addition, inform Xiaohua that when he returns from the battle, this old man will reward him handsomely." "Yes, I understand." Li Zongbao was overjoyed, but he looked disappointed and sighed. "If I had known, I would have asked Xiaohua to come back. I will be the last to report." "Ha ha ha. You don't have to be disappointed." Qian Lazy laughed. Your helping is not stingy. When you return, there will be more rewards. With that, Qian Lazy waved his sleeves and disappeared slowly. At this time, Qian Lazy opened his mouth slightly as if he wanted to say something. Because he had not reported to Qian Lazy about the horrifying phoenix. Of course, the reason why he put it last and even hid it from Qian Lazy was because he was afraid that Qian Lazy would ask him about his negligence. Haha. That's enough. After Qian Lazy disappeared, Hung Ming clapped his hands and said, "The masters of the three sects are indeed wise. With the extra reward, our disciples will be able to kill Jian Xiao." Senior Qian Lazy said that the rewards from Sky Patrol City will be great. I will send someone to inform Sky Patrol City now. Let's see what they will reward. On the surface, the crime of Tu Hong's assassination was still pinned on Qin Jian. Xiao Hua and the other two had killed Qin Jian. Even though Shuiyu spiritual master knew this, he could only pinch his nose and admit it. The rewards would definitely be generous. Sure enough, in the time it took to smoke half a cigarette, the disciple that Hung Ming sent to Sky Patrol City returned. Naturally, there was a Foundation establishment disciple from Sky Patrol City following behind him. This disciple brought a generous reward, but strangely he didn't bring any orders from Shuiyu Jinren, not even a verbal order. Hung Ming sneered in his heart. He even glanced at Li Zongbao. He knew that Tu Hong was not assassinated by Qin Jian, so how could Shuiyu Sage not know it? At this moment, Li Zongbao took the credit for killing Qin Jian on his shoulders. He had completely disrupted Shuiyu Enlightened Master's plan. It was already good enough that Shuiyu Enlightened Master was willing to give him a reward. Fellow Taoists, this old man will now issue an order to withdraw the #1 bounty on my head from the Great Tao Cultivator battle. Hung Li said loudly with a smile, his voice filled with pride. Thank you, Shuiyu Sage. Qian Mo and Gao Wei shouted. The others naturally agreed. Just as the Sky Patrol City's conference hall issued a reward to commend Li Zongbao, Xiao Mao, and Xiao Hua, the one who killed Qin Jian, was flying above the boundless snowfield. As he flew, he scanned the area with his Buddhist consciousness without any pattern. He became even more impatient. Damn it, isn't it in this direction? Why do I feel that something is wrong? What's so special about it? Where is the purple jasmine flower? Of course, Xiao Hua did not know what the purple jasmine flower looked like. He only found some information from Marshal Kuan's message talisman. However, at this moment, there were some slight ripples in the Buddha fire that had not reacted for a long time. These ripples were somewhat similar to when Zhong Haoren knelt on the mountain and begged Xiao Hua back in Zhongling Mountain Villa. What's going on? Xiao Hua was stunned and stopped. This feeling was not similar to the throbbing of the hand of karma. It was more appropriate to say that it was a sudden impulse. Why are there cultivators here? Just as Xiao Hua cautiously scanned the area with his Buddhist awareness, he found that there were several cultivators about 100 miles away. When Xiao Hua's Buddhist consciousness returned to where the cultivators were, his expression became even more wonderful. I knew it. My wife is here. How can this guy be far away? However, why are these two people here? Moreover, the two of them, their expressions are a little strange. Xiao Hua's face was filled with a look of understanding. Moreover, there was still some incredulity in his expression. His figure suddenly slowed down, and he used the hibernating thunder escape to fly 100 li away. 100 miles away, it was still a flat snowfield. However, there were some sparse vegetation on the snowfield. Although there were very few vegetation and the color was very light, almost all of it was grayish-white. There were only a few spots of green on the vegetation. However, it was still green. In this endless snowfield, there was a trace of vitality. Unfortunately, this vitality did not arouse the vitality of the world. Instead, above the vegetation, there were more than a dozen people with swords drawn. Their fierce auras were soaring to the sky and annihilated this trace of vitality. The dozen people were divided into 3 groups. One group was led by a dignified person with 2 or 3 arrogant and handsome disciples of the Huanhua sect. Who else could it be but Yin Jiechong? The other group was led by a middle-aged man who was not very tall but had a straight figure. He looked like he was the only one in the world and everyone else had to bow down to him. This person had a strong temperament and was very refined, but at this time, his eyes were filled with anger. Behind him were 4 young disciples. These disciples were dressed in clean clothes, and their manners were slightly restrained. The anger in their eyes was even more intense. This refined and determined middle-aged man was none other than Zhongling Mountain Village's Zhong Haoran. However, Zhong Haoran was already at the early stage of foundation establishment, and the few young people near him were around the 10th layer of qi refining. As for the third group, there was only one person. Moreover, this person was a delicate female swordsman. She was also someone Xiaohua was familiar with, Guyu of the Void Heaven Sword School. These 3 groups of people who had no connection with each other were unexpectedly gathered together. No wonder Xiaohua was surprised. However, if Xiaohua carefully looked, he would be able to see a palm-sized, pony-like thing above the snow region. He would not be so surprised. However, that thing was now stuck with a yellow talisman and lying motionlessly on the gray-white vegetation. How could Xiaohua distinguish it? At this time, Yin Jiechong and Zhong Haoran were in a state of mutual hostility. However, Yin Jiechong was unarmed and coldly looked at Zhong Haoran with disdain. Moreover, his vigilant gaze occasionally passed over Zhong Haoran and fell on Guyu's body. Guyu's complexion was as usual. Although she was in a confrontation with the 2 groups of cultivators and was somewhat far away from them, it was obvious that she was somewhat close to Zhong Haoran. Guyu's pretty eyebrows did not reduce her beauty. Because she did not reveal her invisible sword, she gave people a feeling of pity. Fellow Taoist. Although Zhong Haoran was only at the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, he was not afraid in the face of Yin Jiechong, who was only at the peak of the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Although his eyes were burning with anger, he still indifferently said, "This Zhong saw this Ganoderma horse, and the yellow talisman on its body was also struck by this Zhong. How could it now belong to fellow Taoist? Moreover, fellow Taoist indiscriminately attacked me with a magic tool. If this swordsman didn't block it, this Zhong would have already died. This Zhong really doesn't understand. In the eyes of cultivators, is a cultivator a fellow Taoist? Or is the swordsman a fellow Taoist?" After saying this, Zhong Haoran rushed towards Guyu and saluted. "Many thanks to Miss for upholding justice and saving me." However, Guyu did not pay attention to him, and only looked at the 2 people vigilantly. Yin Jiechong sneered and said disdainfully, "Which sect are you a disciple of? Didn't you see I's Taoist robe? What reason does a disciple of my Huanhua sect need for something he wants?" When Zhong Haoran saw that Yin Jiechong was pointing at his sect, he could only reply, "Senior Martial Brother is a disciple of the Huanhua sect, so this Zhong naturally knows." However, since Senior Martial Brother is a disciple of the Huanhua sect, you should have the demeanor of a big sect in the country of Xi. You shouldn't have competed with I. You shouldn't have attacked me without saying anything. Hee, Yin Jiechong sneered. Do you think that you, a cultivator at the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, can capture this Ganoderma horse? Can your yellow talisman easily imprison the Ganoderma horse? Even so, fellow Taoist, you have to make it clear. Zhong Haoran's eyes narrowed slightly. He was really angry, but he still defended himself. If this Zhong knew that there was something fishy about it, I would definitely return this Ganoderma horse. Ha 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 ha, I'm dying of laughter. Yin Jiechong laughed so hard that he swayed back and forth. He pointed with his hand and said, "If this Ganoderma horse fell into your hands, you would still take it out. Do you really think I'm a baby boy? Others don't know, but this Zhong would definitely return it." Zhong Haoran replied word by word. "You? Maybe." Yin Jiechong stopped laughing. He looked at Zhong Haoran from head to toe and said, "You see that I have the intention to kill you, but you are still defending yourself. If you are not pedantic, then you have other plans. Do you want to join forces with this swordsman?" Then Yin Jiechong came to his senses and said coldly, "Since you already know that I am a disciple of the Huanhua sect, why didn't you report your sect? Look, you are not wearing my cultivator's battle robe, and now you have the help of a swordsman from the Huan Kingdom. Hee, do I still need to say it? You must be the spies of the Huan Kingdom's swordsman." After saying that, Yin Jiechong waved his hand and shouted, Come on, disciples, take down these spies. No matter if they are dead or alive, this is all due to our efforts. Yes, the 3 disciples of the Huanhua sect received the order and clapped their hands. 3 magic treasures that were overflowing with brilliance flew into the air. Each of them reflected a multicolored light that was dozens of feet long. They swept up all the spiritual qi of heaven and earth around them and smashed toward Zhonghauren and the others with a faint roar. Among the 3 magic treasures, one was in the shape of a staff. In the multicolored light, the green wooden staff formed a wooden wave. The thumb-sized shadow of the staff hit Zhonghauren and the qi refining disciple behind him. Chapter 2555. The other magical weapon was a fist-sized fire pearl. Its brilliance was the brightest. Even in this extremely cold snowfield, it still emitted an orange-red brilliance that shot out about 10 feet. Within the brilliance, the 3 aura refining disciples behind Zhonghauren were shrouded in layers and layers of fire. The scorching heat that assaulted their faces caused the 3 aura refining disciples' expressions to greatly change. As for the 3rd magic weapon, it was a scarlet-yellow silk ribbon. As it flew in the air, there were faint runes flowing on its surface. Following behind the fire bead, it resembled a spirit serpent, shrouding all 4 of them except for Zhonghauren. Seeing that the 3 mid-foundation building cultivators had unexpectedly used rare magic weapons as soon as they attacked, and under their magic power, those magic weapons emitted a terrifying aura, Zhonghauren and the other 4 aura refining disciples couldn't help but greatly change their expressions. Apart from Zhonghauren, who had stepped into the foundation building realm, the other 4 were only in the aura refining realm. Not to mention 3 middle-stage foundation building cultivators using 3 magic weapons. Even if a middle-stage foundation building cultivator didn't use any magic weapons, Zhonghauren and the other 4 aura refining disciples wouldn't be a match for them. However, as soon as the 3 magic weapons left their hands, they immediately displayed their might and simply smashed down without holding back. Aside from being alarmed, the 5 disciples could only clap their hands together and raise one hand. Unexpectedly, a dozen or so yellow talismans of various colors appeared in their hands, and in their other hands, several flying swords appeared. The swords flickered as they closely followed the yellow talismans and stabbed towards the 3 magic weapons that had already fallen several meters above their heads. Puff! Puff! A dozen or so soft sounds rang out. The dozens of activated yellow talismans had just absorbed a small amount of spiritual qi of heaven and earth when they were crushed by the brilliance of the magic weapons and turned into fragments that drifted down. As for the yellow talismans, they simply couldn't absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Under the magic power of the aura refining disciples, they only flashed a faint brilliance before being annihilated. The intact yellow talismans were just like scrap paper that drifted in the air. When he looked at Zhonghauren again, there was only a moment of panic on his face before his eyes flashed with determination. The flying sword in his hand turned into a rainbow as a sword beam pierced through the air towards the green staff shadow. Tisk tsk tsk tisk, Zhonghauren's flying sword was actually very fast. The sword light only flashed for a moment before it pierced into the staff shadows. It sounded like it was piercing through bamboo. Nearly 40% of the staff shadows at the front of the green staff magic treasure were actually pierced by Zhonghauren's flying sword and disappeared without a trace. Oh, the middle foundation establishment disciple of the Huanhua sect was slightly taken aback. He hadn't expected Zhonghauren's flying sword to be so sharp. However, the sneer on the disciple's face became even more pronounced. The remaining shadows of the staff didn't stop. Pa pa pa, a series of sword cries rang out. Zhonghauren's flying sword was struck and sent flying backwards. Not good. When Zhonghauren saw the green staff suddenly emit a brilliance again, he immediately knew that things weren't good. He hurriedly formed an incantation to retrieve his flying sword. However, after the row of staff shadows fell, a thick shadow of the green staff emerged from the staff shadows. Boom! It smashed into the flying sword. The brilliance of the flying sword quickly converged. Then, with a crisp kacha sound, a wide crack appeared on the flying sword. It extended from the tip of the flying sword all the way to the end of the sword. Zhong Haoren's face suddenly burst into a bright red color. Then the red color suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a deathly white color. The broken flying sword fell into the dust along with the dark red color on his face. Zhong Haoren was like this, so the flying swords of the other 4 aura refining disciples were not worth mentioning. Although half of the shadow of the green staff had been destroyed by Zhong Haoren, the remaining shadow hit another flying sword. The flying sword had just flown out when it was immediately knocked down. It simply didn't have any effect. As for the 3 flying swords under the fire bead, they were even more miserable than Zhong Haoren's flying sword. At the same time that the fire pearl struck down the 2 flying swords, the flames inside it emerged and enveloped the 2 flying swords. Seeing the flying swords being refined by the flames, the 2 aura refining disciples couldn't resist at all no matter how much magic power they channeled. The other flying sword was directly smashed by the fire bead. The aura refining disciple who had a primordial spirit connection with the flying sword directly collapsed on the snowy ground. The snake-like silk ribbon followed behind the fire bead. At this time, it was flashing with a clear blue brilliance. Countless light silks shrouded Zhong Haoren and the other 4 people, completely isolating the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. A gradually shrinking force of imprisonment firmly bound the 5 people. Seeing that Zhong Haoren had actually taken out his flying sword, Yin Guicheng's eyes flashed with a trace of contempt. He turned to look at Gu Yu and said coldly, "Sure enough, as I expected, these are the spies of the sword cultivator. Why don't you surrender?" The corner of Gu Yu's mouth flashed a trace of a sneer. He waved his hand, and the flying sword in his hand turned into a stream of light and pierced towards Yin Guicheng. This stream of light was like a fountain, transforming into countless thin sword lights in the air, covering his upper body. Every sword light flickered with a sharp and bright light, as if it could pierce through one's eyes. Yin Guicheng raised his head and roared. He clapped his hand and a semicircular magic weapon appeared in his hand. This semicircular magic weapon was very strange. It was orange-yellow in color, as if it was connected with a string of flames. When Yin Guicheng threw the magic weapon in the air, the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth swarmed in. The runes on the flames flowed, and the flames transformed into a dragon with a head and a tail. It was Su Yinyan's family heirloom, the dragon-driving hoop. "Go!" Yin Guicheng pointed his finger, and the dragon shape suddenly enlarged to the size of a few feet. However, the dragon shape did not fly straight, but circled around a circular area. Woo-woo! There was a sound, and the center of the dragon-driving hoop produced a great suction force, blocking in front of Yin Guicheng. Gu Yu's flying sword light fell into the hoop like a firefly flying into a flame, as if there was no resistance at all. A flying sword in the shape of a sharp cone gradually appeared in the center of the dragon-driving hoop. "Haha," Yin Guicheng chuckled, but before he could laugh, his face became serious again. This was because Gu Yu, who was controlling the flying sword in the air just now, had disappeared from her original place. The way she disappeared was so strange and so sudden. It was as if she wasn't there at all. What is going on? Yin Guicheng was surprised. He hurriedly released his divine sense, trying to find out where Gu Yu had escaped to. But at this moment, an extremely sharp sword light appeared on Yin Guicheng's left shoulder. Yin Guicheng's protective brilliance flickered for a moment before it was immediately annihilated, and the sword light sank into his body. Blood light burst out along with the sword light. Yin Guicheng was shocked. He used his flying technique to quickly fly to the right. But how could his flying technique be compared to Gu Yu's? The sword light was like a maggot in a tarsal bone, and there was no sign of it being dodged. "Attack!" Yin Guicheng gritted his teeth and pointed at the dragon-driving hoop with his right hand. Roar! With a dragon roar, the illusory dragon expanded once again and charged towards Yin Guicheng's left arm. Above the dragon's head, a beam of light that resembled a sword shot into the air. The dragon-driving hoop was also very fast. The dragon shape fell a few feet in a moment, and Gu Yu's invisible sword could no longer pierce into Yin Guicheng's body. But with a wave of her hand, a piece of flesh fell from Yin Guicheng's arm, and blood immediately fell down. Boom! The dragon-repelling hoop and Gu Yu's flying sword collided. The dragon-repelling hoop slightly vibrated while Guyu's flying sword also flashed. Under the might of the dragon-repelling hoop, Guyu's figure also quietly flashed. Invisible sword? Seeing this, Yin Guicheng was shocked. Regardless of the injury on his left arm, he hurriedly pointed at the dragon-driving hoop. His spiritual power was activated again, and he fiercely flew toward the place where Guyu revealed herself. However, when the dragon-driving hoop flew past, there was no movement at all. Obviously, Guyu was no longer there. Not good. Yin Guicheng's thoughts turned very quickly. His whole body suddenly flew to the left, and he landed at the place where Guyu revealed herself. His right hand patted his forehead. Roar! A huge dragon roar came from Yin Guicheng's body. Then the surface of Yin Guicheng's body flashed with crimson flames. As the flames burned, a fiery dragon 5 feet in size, like a huge coiled python, emerged. With the appearance of Yin Guicheng's fiery dragon, a faint red color appeared in the surrounding area of dozens of feet. It seemed to be the brilliance of the fiery spiritual energy of heaven and earth. A faint blazing heat turned the snow and ice underground into flowing water in a moment. Withdraw! Yin Guicheng stood in the air majestically. The wound on his left arm quickly healed. As Yin Guicheng waved his hand, the dragon-driving hoop fell into his hand. Buzz! With a buzzing sound, the dragon-driving hoop in Yin Guicheng's hand, without the activation of his spiritual power, increased by a few feet. The fierce dragon shape became even more ferocious. Go! Yin Guicheng's eyes flashed red. He swung his right arm, and the dragon-driving hoop flashed brilliantly in the air. With a fierce force, it smashed somewhere in the air to the right. Boom! The brilliance in front of the dragon-driving hoop flashed, and a sword light appeared. It was the sword light that blocked the dragon-driving hoop. Then, the sword light flew up diagonally. Obviously, Guyu's invisible sword could not resist the great power of Yin Guicheng's dragon-driving hoop. Where do you think you're going? Yin Guicheng's body flashed with flames, and he rushed to the place where Guyu was sent flying. With the movement of Yin Guicheng's body, the fiery dragon body also slowly moved. Woo! The dragon-driving hoop roared again. Guyu's invisible sword was forced out of its sword shape by Yin Guicheng again. With the appearance of the invisible sword, Guyu's somewhat astonished face was revealed along with his barely stabilized body. Obviously, Guyu did not expect Yin Guicheng to have such a powerful fiery dragon body. Moreover, Yin Guicheng's strength had already exceeded the cultivation of the middle stage of foundation establishment. Within the range of Yin Guicheng's body, Guyu's biggest reliance was suddenly lost. Go! Since the invisible sword was useless, Guyu did not say anything. The flying sword in his hand flew out again. The small flying sword spun in the air, and countless white snowflakes gushed out. The sword light was the 6 petals of the snowflakes. The purity of ice and jade was Guyu's nobility. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.